But those claws on the wings are, once again, invaluable.
We come to this place for science. We come to paleontologizing streams to laugh, to cry, to show up late and then ask what today's topic is even though it's right there in the title. Because we need that. All of us. That indescribable feeling we get when the surf rock starts, and we learn something we've never known before. Not just entertained but somehow infotained, together. Baffling images on a tiny computer screen. Sound that I can feel.
Dirter. A dirter is one of those things you get at the end of the paper towels, the cardboard thing in the middle, you go dir, dir, dir in it.
Genus names I can mispronounce.
Purdue.
Somehow, extinction feels good in a place like this. Our common ancestors feel like the best part of us. And dinosaurs feel like they're still around. Because here, they are. Paleontologizing streams, we make fossils less dead.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Paleontologizing. It's so good to see all of you here today on this Monday, May 18th, 2026. I'm going to be leaving for Florida in just a few hours, so this might actually be a little bit of a shorter stream, we'll see. I still have to pack my bags and everything, but, oh man, I'm excited. I'll talk more about that in a bit, but for right now, to introduce myself to anybody who might be new, my name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. I'm here on Twitch trying to do some good old-fashioned science outreach. Talking about fossils, talking about the history of life on Earth, talking about the nature of science. And not just talking about it, but trying to show it to you, to involve you in the process, walk you through how we do paleontology, for instance. In like a little over a week, I'm going to be out in Wyoming, digging up dinosaurs again, with a field crew of paleontologists and students and volunteers. And I'm going to be live streaming. Very excited about that. It's going to be like our 4th or 5th year doing this. Anywho, fieldwork is starting up very soon. Live streaming fieldwork, but also I'm going to be doing some fieldwork on the beach in Florida tomorrow night, hopefully. In 24 hours, I'm going to be getting ready for doing some leatherback turtle fieldwork out there. I cannot wait in Florida. But anyway, before we get to that,
Dirter.
we're going to be talking a little bit about Florida today, because I'll be doing some streams from there as well. We'll be talking about the natural history of this state. Its geology, its prehistory, its modern biota, the different plants and animals and other critters that call that state home. Florida is a truly special place, and I'm excited to talk about it. There's wonders galore for the paleontologist, or simply for the paleontologically inclined. So we'll be talking about that today. Alexander says, sounds like my kind of stream. Yeah, and there's a real croc skull right there. Alligator Mississippiensis right there in the background. Welcome, Alexander, and everybody else. Weird stuff going down here. It's like the Australia of the USA. It kind of is, PyroKitty's Tavern. It's the continental United States' little piece of the tropics. Or the subtropics, at least. It's a truly special place, that peninsula. Let's see who's here in the chat. We'll say hello. We'll do a Blue Sky post. We'll do Metazua. And I'll show off some of the stuff I was scrambling to get ready yesterday. Leatherback turtle bobblehead, complete. Leatherback turtle t-shirts, complete. I'll show those off in a bit. But first, let's see who's here in the chat. I've already lost the top of chat, but I remember seeing Lenina and probably Kodali and Matt M33 up at the top. There's Casey. How are you doing, Casey? Hello, hello. Casey, I hope you had an excellent weekend. It's good to see you. How did your subathon go? Your fundraiser for IRL streaming? I hope it went really well. I will have to wait for the answer when I scroll down. But Casey, good to see you. Lenina, I hear you've had a very long day so far. Getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hope you're doing well, Lenina. It's good to see you. Thank you for everything you do. Claire Burr, wonderful to see you always. Hope you've had a good weekend too. Hope you're as excited for Florida as I am. Golganek, what's shaking? Hello, hello. Tampa Bay Buddy. Sounds like you're here for the correct stream. I'm not going to be going to Tampa. I'm mostly going to be staying along what's called the Treasure Coast of Florida. Very excited to go back. I like Florida a lot. It's really cool natural heritage in that state, for sure. So many cool critters. Yeah, for sure. Huh, Mini Pie? Sandwich Nom Nom, how are you doing? Hello, hello. Swims with Whales, welcome back. Sibley, howdy, howdy. Gav 1816, what's shaking with you? Niffler, good to see ya. Fall Machine, howdy, howdy. XVR27, how are things going? Tactical Sponge, hello, hello. We've got Pyro Kitty's Tavern. We've got Ten Gletchy. We've got Goth Rush. We've got Jamira. Maxwell Paxton. Scrolling. MS Coggins, howdy, howdy. Wind 528. Dirt or Bust. Let's see. Charlie's Dragon. Thank you for everything you do, Charlie's Dragon. Wonderful to see you, as always. Hope you've had an excellent weekend. And, let's see. Petrodactylus. Howdy, howdy. Good to see you too, Petra. How was your weekend? Oh, hello, Mini Pie. By the way, did you get to go to that? I think you did get to go to that talk already, right? With Steve Brusati about his new book? It was good. Stadler and Waldorf. Hello, hello. And oh, Mighty Draz. How can I miss you? Howdy, howdy, Mighty Draz. Welcome back. Wombat Hole. Hello to you also. Hope you're having a good day. Anywho, somebody here is demanding payment of my landlords. First, you need some brushing. Nobody's been brushing. Nobody's been brushing. What do you think? Time for some brushing? Let's make it happen. Oh, there we go. How's that? Is that pretty good? Oh, and very cool, Petrodactylus. Brussetti did 2 more talks at the Berks Dino Fest as well. Very cool. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it went well. I'm glad you had a good time. That's really cool. See, that's one of the benefits of living in a place where you've got like a major museum nearby, you know? Not everybody has that privilege, but I've been very lucky that I pretty much have. Growing up here in the Bay Area, we've got the University of California Museum of Paleontology down the road from where I live. And then when I lived in Montana for the better part of a decade, it's just down the street from Museum of the Rockies. I know Bozeman, Montana is not a major metropolitan area or anything, but there is a world-class museum there. So we would get our fair share of visiting paleontologists, able to look through the collections and measure specimens and all that good stuff, so yeah. Akira Eclipses, are you traveling today? I am. I might cut this stream a little bit short, because Lordy and I are flying out to Florida this evening. And I still have to pack my things. I've got many things gathered up, but not yet put into the luggage. Gotta do that, huh? Oh, okay. Alright, wait, we gotta pay our landlord here, too. Yeah, gotta make sure when I come back home, all my stuff isn't out on the curb, right? Right? Not again. What's that? Oh, sorry, it's the camera noise. Ooh, good stuff. Wombat Hole, invent your own luck? I mean, sometimes you have to, yeah. How's that? Pretty good? Go. stuff off the desk. There we go. Tasty, tasty. Lordy says, I see Minnie finally decided to get up. Yeah, was she on the bed all morning? My goodness. She heard I was streaming and she was like, I can show up for that. I get the feel center stage there. Huh. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. What do you think, Mini Pie? I think she is sated. I was looking for the paper towels. I had them over here earlier. I was working on several leatherback turtle projects last night. Alright. Okay. Let's do a quick screenshot here. See if that's any good. At least that's blue sky. Hey Andon, how you doing? Welcome. I almost look worried there. Let's redo that, shall we? I could do better than that. I look skeevy in that photo somehow. Delete. Here. I'm trying to get the horseshoe crab in there as well. Alright, one more try. That'll work. We'll go with that. Alright. Save as. You're gonna know that I'm got to do this. We are live. That's not spelled right. Didn't come up with the thing. Gotta make sure the thumbnail's correct. There we go. Little fail safe there. Excellent. Post. There we go. T minus. Let's say for some leatherback turtle field work. Doing a quick stream first, covering natural history of the covering sounds too comprehensive. We're gonna just kind of get into whatever folks are curious about and whatever tickles our fancy in that particular moment. So we'll say chatting about the natural history of Sunshine State, from limestone to crocodilians to Thermocheliid turtles.
I do call myself an expert in dinosaur studies.
Oh, do you, Mr. Twinkie? Well, I guess after 6 months. You're well on your way. Thank you for keeping me here online, Mr. Twinkie. I appreciate that. Thank you for the support. Making these things possible. I appreciate it. Paleontologizing looks correct. All right.
And I tell my kids, you have to remember, dinosaurs and human beings lived on the Earth at the same time.
Huh?
What, like the Flintstones?
Which parts of Florida are you visiting?
Kennedy, I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Thank you for the 47 months of support. Thank you. I love that alert. Yeah. Anywho, thank you, Kennedy. I appreciate it. American crocodiles in the Indian River Lagoon? You're kidding me. Again, what? Seems like their possible northernmost spread on the East Coast. If luck permits, you might just be in the vicinity of wild crocodiles? Alexander Morrison. That would be... We'll have to look this up on iNaturalist in a minute. First, let me get this done. With a myriad of... Okay, here's a question for you, Alexander, and any other residents of Florida or people with strong ties to Florida. What is the demonym for Florida? Is it Floridian or is it Floridan? Because this book makes frequent use of the word Floridan, but that's in reference to the geology. It's the roadside geology of Florida. Maybe Floridan is for things and critters, and maybe Floridian is for people. We gotta look this up. Alexander says Floridian, and so does Pirate Kitty's Tavern. Iguanas, gators, rabbits, and owl. That's very cool, Mike. Oh man, I can't wait. I'm so excited. So yeah, Floridian seems to be the demonym for people who live in Florida, but
Here's some objects, gorgeous, gargantuans, and authentic. Because though they died out so long ago, their fossil bones remain, so we know just what they were
Good
like,
afternoon,
and can
everyone.
even sculpt them into still, or rather, extinct life.
thank you, Disco Fountain, for keeping me online for 17 months now. Thank you so much for the Prime. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. printed models of guitarfish, a 1/3 scale adult leatherback turtle, horseshoe crab, alligator gar, and a mini sawfish model, and full-size sawfish rostrum, all of which are 3D printed. Get rid of 3D print there. Along with some Florida-esque palm fronds, a real subadult alligator skull, and a suspiciously Confederate looking Florida state flag. Gotta give people a reason to read the alt text, even if they're not like visual impaired or anything like that. Looks good. Paleontologizing. Let's post it.
Hold on to your butts.
There we go. Yeah, the alligator skull is real, Puggo Wuggo. It is. I'll show you in a minute. Here's a link to this post if anyone wanted to engage with that, if you happen to be on Blue Sky. But yeah, this is a real-life skull of alligator Mississippiensis. There's plenty of models of these available for 3D printing online. But getting the real thing is less expensive than you might imagine, which is why I did it. Here, I'm gonna turn off that light for a second so you can see it a little bit better. We'll get this washed out in the camera. But, yeah, check it out. Pretty cool. A whole bunch of the dinosaur paleontologists that I know, lots of friends and colleagues, happen to have an alligator skull in their office, each their own alligator skull. It is just a really nice thing to be able to reference when you're working on dinosaur anatomy. Crocs are dinosaurs' closest non-dinosaur relatives, if that makes sense. Going back to the old EPB. Crocodiles are kind of like cousins to the dinosaurs. Out of all the critters on our planet that aren't dinosaurs, they are the closest phylogenetically. So they share the most recent common ancestor with dinosaurs. Birds literally are a kind of dinosaur. So when we say dinosaurs' closest living relatives, you could probably be safe in excluding birds because it's like, well, they are dinosaurs. Oh, anyhow. But alligators are very cool critters. And because they and dinosaurs share a fairly recent common ancestry, there's a lot that we can learn from crocodilians, alligators, and their relatives. So it's a nice thing to have around for sure. Yeah. They still have the interorbital sinus in the sun. Exactly, Alexander. Yeah. Both pairs of temporal fenestrae. You betcha. Yep. You've got these back here, the temporal fenestrae, and then you've got the postorbital fenestrae back here. And then whatever's going on there as well. Yeah. Very cool stuff. So, here. The skull of an alligator has got a lot of similarities to the skull of a dinosaur. Again, this is not a coincidence. It's not convergence. They come from the same ancestor. Security check. This one's good. Especially here in the States, alligators they're a well-known kind of model to use when we're trying to ask questions about Mesozoic dinosaurs. That's funny, because that doesn't totally look like an alligator. Well, maybe it is. It's just a weird idea. Anyway, it turns out that alligators are, in many ways, a pretty good analogy for dinosaurs. Here, let's see if I can find you that clip from the Ballad of Big Al. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So this is from The Ballad of Big Al, a Walking with Dinosaurs special from the BBC. Cannot wait to see some alligator Mississippiensis while I'm out there in Florida. Such an it's an iconic animal, and it's so cool that they're just all over the place in Florida, you know? Very much looking forward to taking some pictures and logging some on iNaturalist. And actually, here, that makes me wonder, too, about the American croc. Well, we'll get to that. So cool seeing some hornbill at the Sacramento Zoo a little while ago. That was pretty nifty. And Seiko Sama says, what's the difference between an alligator, a croc, and a caiman? Ooh, we can talk about that in a minute. Here, well, let's do that right now. Let's pull them all up on our Tree of Life here. So caimans are actually, I think, part of Alligatoridae. They're part of the alligator family. But then alligators and crocodiles and gharials are all within Crocodilia. I'll show you what that means. Oh, and here, before I do that, let me just show you this quick infographic. It'd be nice if we could find one of these that isn't on Reddit. Orcs things. Whatever. What's the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? The difference is in the shape of their jaws. Alligators eat babies in an A shape. Crocodiles eat babies in a C shape. See? This is not correct. This is not correct. Let's go to Archosauria here. I know, right, Casey? If you want to tell if the crocodilian that you're looking at is an alligator or a crocodile, all you need is a baby that you're not very attached to. So birds and crocs form this group called Archosauria. These are the archosaurs. Dinosaurs are part of this group too. And here we go. On our what is a dinosaur diagram. Dinosaurs start right here. Everything that evolves from them is a dinosaur by definition. Because that's how we classify things as scientists. It's not based on vibes. It's not based on what it looks like or how it makes us feel or whatever. It's based on the ancestry. If you evolved from a dinosaur, like birds did, then you are a dinosaur. That's just how it works, you know? That's how classification works in the biological sciences. So anyway, Archosauria is right here. This is the group that includes the crocs, and there were all kinds of weird, interesting, wacky crocs that lived back in the day. Nowadays, these ones here, the ones that you typically think of as crocs and alligators, these are the only ones left, but there used to be marine crocodiles with fishy tail flukes who probably gave birth to live young in the water. They probably didn't even lay eggs. But like a dolphin, they would just give birth to a baby. You had land-living bipedal crocs, things like Postosuchus. These guys used to be called Rawasuchians or Ornithosuchians. I'm not totally sure what we call them nowadays. Probably Postosuchid cruritarsans or something. But Postosuchus, again, not a dinosaur. It's a weird crocky guy. And they thrived during the Triassic period. And then you've also got things like Aedosaurs right here. These weird plant-eating terrestrial crocs. They may have spent some time in the water too. But yeah, they're really neat. Here, I'll show you a clip from when dinosaurs roamed America.
Usually flows year-round.
Desmatasuchus. What a cool critter. And yeah, Clipper, yeah. And Postosuchus does have, it's almost Tyrannosaur-like. It's very interesting. Yeah. And this is funny because we're talking about crocs, and this is very much not a croc. This is a phytosaur. But, there were tons of things that were related to crocs back in the day. Your, things like Postosuchus, and things like Aedosaurs, and then you have things like phytosaurs, which very badly want to be crocs, but... Anyway, so the point is, crocs are over here. Birds literally are a kind of dinosaur, and crocs are related to dinosaurs. Does that make sense? So there's some real familial... Oh, hang on. It's my credit union calling you back hours after the fact. Anyway, I'm working right now.
Is trick these alligators.
So they're looking at these two modern critters today, a hornbill and an alligator, and using this to try and talk about how dinosaurs may have behaved, non-avian dinosaurs during the Mesozoic, like, say, for instance, Allosaurus. Opportunistic, yeah. So this guy, he set this up. He's got this toy dinosaur here. I think it's soaked in fish oil. And he's got like a string on it. And the idea is the alligator will come up, try and strike at it, and he'll pull it away using the string so the alligator can't get it. And you can see how disappointed he is. I hope that this is okay for the gator, that it won't swallow this and it won't impact its guts or something. But so we call this an endocast. If a skull is well preserved enough, then we can actually, you know, we can look at the brain case, which is the, you know, like motorcyclists say, the brain box. It's the skull, the part of the skull that contains the brain. So you look inside that brain case, maybe you scan it, and then you can create a digital model of it. Here's the digital model of a Tyrannosaurus brain. This is the brain of T-Rex right here. And we can use that, we can look at the various parts of the brain in order to learn some stuff about the lifestyle of the animal, its cognitive capabilities, its senses. Which parts of this brain are hypertrophied, which are really, really big, which are atrophied, which are underemphasized. It gives you a sense for, like, well, is this a nose-first animal? Is it an eyes-first animal? Which of its senses are the strongest? How does it experience the world? When you look at the brain like this, you can learn a lot about the animal in life. Even like with the semicircular canal right here. So this is the inner ear, and so this is sort of like a spirit level. You know, one of these is for measuring angles and stuff with the little bubble inside. There's little air bubbles that move throughout these, and this is what gives us our balance. You know, our sense of, like, you know, where is our head in space? So the orientation of the semicircular canal here can actually give us a sense for what is the neutral position of the animal's head. Does it walk around with its head like this? Or like this? Or like this? This can actually tell us that, which is really cool, you know? Brains. Very important.
Well, let's start with a bird. Here's a model of a bird. If we look at the way the bird is,
yeah. Nope. Let me give you the link in there we go. Anyhow, where's the magnet in bird brains, says Seku-sama? So there is some sort of magnetic material in birds' brains, but it's not like they have, you know. It's not like they have a literal, like, magnet in their brain. There's going to be some ferrous material in there. It's going to be very, very small, and I don't know exactly how that works. I'm not a neurologist. I don't study brains. But it's going to be something very small and very subtle, you know? But yeah, geomagnetic navigation is definitely a thing for certain kinds of bird, and also, probably, for sea turtles. We're still kind of figuring out how exactly they're able to find their nesting beach region. Sometimes from like halfway around the world they can find that, especially with the case of leatherbacks in the Pacific population. But yeah. Anyhow, Dan the BC Man says, how is mine compared to an alligator? Have you ever had a scan taken of your brain? Yeah, I had a scan taken of my teeth back in January, and that was cool. But yeah. Anywho, cool stuff. Before I get too drawn into any other tangents, let's do Metazoo real quick. While we're talking about common ancestry and relatedness through evolution, let's do Metazoo. Iacane says, I had a brain exam. I failed. Oh, Iacane. I do appreciate a self-deprecating joke, but it just... Sometimes jokes need to have a kernel of truth, and that one just doesn't. Anywho. Yeah. Wombat Hole says they come up for air and can see the sunshine and also the stars. So there is something about the sunshine where the pineal opening that they have, sometimes called a skylight in their skull, it might help them kind of regulate their calendar so they know what time of year they should start their migration based on angle of the sun and length of daylight and all that stuff. But leatherback turtles don't have very good long-distance vision. No marine turtles do. So I don't think they can see the stars at all. I don't think stars really have much to do. But we can talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes if you'd like. Right now, I want to get through Metazoa. This is our daily animal guessing challenge. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Twinkie, oh boy. And Seiko Sama says the Romans believed that plants that looked like body parts healed those body parts, and that's why walnuts are considered brain food. That is funny. They are high in protein, so that doesn't help. It doesn't hurt. But, you know, today we've got similar things, too. Like, there's a lot of, like, weird myths that people believe about certain foods and stuff that have no basis in science. It's one thing to, you know... Maybe it's fair enough to laugh at the ancient Greeks or Romans or Egyptians or whatever. Like, oh, they believed all these ridiculous things, but, like, there are certain myths about superfoods and stuff like that, or even vitamin C, you know? Vitamin C is not a cure for the common cold. Stuff like this. Emergency, Immune Plus. Does not work. Vitamin C, it's not some sort of magical remedy that will keep you from getting sick. It's not a thing. We've watched this before, but, unless you got scurvy. Well, that's a very different thing, Kelp Devil. And it's not just... Like, there's so many different foods that contain vitamin C. Potatoes contain a good amount of vitamin C. Yeah.
Orange juice.
What did you say?
Orange juice.
It's for when you're feeling hot and not so hot.
Don't you worry about Susie getting enough vitamin C?
Many people reach straight for the orange juice when they get a cold. Or mix up one of these cold-busting, immune-boosting supplements packed full of vitamin C.
Yeah.
It's supposed to help cure the common cold. They're a growing $200 million industry. And unsurprisingly, their sales peak when the cold and flu season does. And with boxes that claim that vitamin C helps support your immune system, why wouldn't you pop a fizzy tablet when you start to feel a bit stuffy? But if you follow this little asterisk, you'll see that the claim isn't supported by the FDA.
Nope.
That's because vitamin C doesn't cure your cold.
No, it doesn't. It is an important thing to have, but is basically like if you're getting probably 99.9% of people around the world are getting more than enough vitamin C in their daily diet because lots of different things contain it. Sure, if you're a conscripted sailor in the Dutch Navy circa 1500, then maybe you might be at risk for scurvy because you haven't had any fresh food, no fruits, no vegetables, nothing like that, not even any potatoes for the past year or whatever, then you might get scurvy, yeah, and that's horrific. But if you're a person living in the modern world and you eat anything even remotely in the ballpark of a balanced diet, you're not going to get scurvy. Yeah, and vitamin C doesn't actually have anything to do with your immune system like this. Linus Pauling was the guy who was kind of responsible for this back in the day. Here we go.
Pauling. He was a pretty big deal. He won a Nobel Prize for his work with quantum chemistry and a Nobel Peace Prize in the 60s for his anti-nuclear weapon advocacy.
You're new here,
So
right,
when he
Kelp
came
Devil?
out with a book in 1970,
you could tell me whatever, and I'd believe you.
claiming that vitamin C could help you avoid colds and improve your health, it took off. Americans cleared drugstore shelves. Newspapers wrote that the sales were not to be sneezed at and called it the Great Cold Rush. But the medical community was cold to Pauling's cold claims. For one, they weren't based on any actual science. Pauling had personally started taking vitamin C at the suggestion of a friend, and he got less colds. The criticism, of course, was that just because it happened to him, it didn't make it a real study.
No, and that's the thing, is that, like, there's an idea that we call Nobel disease, or Nobelitis. Informal term for the embrace of strange or scientifically unsound ideas by some Nobel Prize winners, usually later in life. Basically, it's like, hey, I'm so great I won a Nobel Prize, it must mean that every thought that I have is brilliant. Even in the fields that I know nothing about, that I am not even close to an expert in. It's a thing. Anyhow. And yeah, it might not actually be more common in Nobel Prize winners, but the thing is, people listen to Nobel Prize winners even when they have wacky ideas. So while it remains unclear whether Nobel winners are statistically more prone to critical thinking errors than other scientists.
The odds of this happening are so slim they are impossible to calculate.
Thank you for
But then on top of that, to actually find the fossil makes the world of the dinosaur hunter the world of the long shot.
Thank you. Thank you, Tulip Waltz, for the 6 months of support. I really appreciate it. Thanks for keeping me here on. You got too much of a Nobel ego, says Petrodactylus. I mean, yeah. So it's unclear whether Nobel winners are statistically more prone to critical thinking errors than other scientists. But the phenomenon is of interest because it provides an existence proof that being an authority in one field does not necessarily make one an authority in any other field. And to the extent that winning a Nobel Prize serves as a proxy indicator for scientific brilliance and high general intelligence, such characteristics are not incompatible with irrationality. Yes. So basically, just because you won a Nobel Prize in physics or in medicine doesn't mean that you're not just a complete rube when it comes to other things. And it might even make you more likely to believe untrue things in fields that you're not an expert in. Especially if you have a very high opinion of yourself, you know? If it goes to your head, it can really mess you up. So that's one of the reasons why on this channel I try to make very clear when I'm not an expert in a particular thing. Like, hey, you should ask this person or that person. Go ask a climatologist. Go ask a neurologist. I said earlier, you know, I'm not an expert in brains and how they work. I'm not a neurologist. I don't know exactly what goes on with... I haven't even read enough to know what the general consensus is, let alone have any special information about magnetic structures inside of bird brains or anything. That's a very, very important part of science, of being a scientist, is recognizing your own limitations. The easiest person to fool is always yourself, you know? Gotta be careful about that kind of... Yeah. And no one can be an expert in everything? Exactly, Brandalorian, yeah. Yeah. But yeah... 50-50 probability? And that's exactly what that means, Kelp Devil, yeah. And Avocado, listen to lawyers who are on O.J. Simpson's defense team. Oh yeah, no, there's one celebrity lawyer in particular I'm thinking of. I don't think has a great reputation. I know it doesn't. Anywho, yeah. I wasn't gonna say the name, Abogado, but okay. Anyway, I'll give you a link to this video. Yeah.
Which Pauline admitted to and asked that someone actually do one. But doctors already knew that taking large amounts of vitamin C wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
Adults only need 75.
It can give you things like diarrhea and stuff like that. As I understand it, vitamin C, I forget the chemical name for it, but vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. Some others are fat-soluble, so like you can, with fat-soluble vitamins, you don't just like flush them out through your urinary tract. They can actually accumulate in your body, and you can actually like overdose on them. With vitamin C, it's very, very hard to overdose because you just pass it in your urine. You know, it's water soluble. So, yeah. And people who are taking things like Airborne or Emergency, they're just producing some very expensive urine.
5 to 90 milligrams of vitamin C a day. It's found in a ton of different foods. Most people are eating enough vitamin C in their normal diet for a healthy immune system. But Pauline's book suggested taking 2,000 milligrams or more a day.
What?
22 times the amount you really need.
Oh boy.
Just because vitamin C is good for you doesn't mean that taking more is better for you.
No, it doesn't. Anyway, I'll give you a link here. And things like Airborne and Emergency, products like that, they're not actively harmful in the vast majority of cases. They're generally pretty harmless, but they are a waste of money, you know? And what's worse, they're fooling people, you know? I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a sucker, you know? And when you buy something like that, you are being a sucker. So, yeah. But placebo effect, yeah, that is a thing, Seiko-sama. For some people, the placebo effect is, you know, it can be a powerful force.
Not a bear in sight. The Bear Patrol must be working like a charm.
That's specious reasoning, Dad.
Thank you, honey.
By your logic, I could claim that this rock keeps tigers away.
Oh, how does it work?
It doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
It's just a stupid rock.
Uh-huh.
But I don't see any tigers around here, do you?
Lisa, I want to buy your rock.
Anyway, it's expensive to be a sucker, you know? Anyhow, Kelp Devil says, I'm new. Here's a random question. Why did you focus on dinosaurs instead of all the equally as cool, if not cooler, options? First of all, there's no cooler options than dinosaurs. Believe me, I study dinosaurs. And, since I study this one thing, that must make me an expert in everything, right? Just like we were just talking about. So, of course, I know dinosaurs are the coolest thing. But I've always just been intensely interested in dinosaurs from the time that I was a really little kid. My parents have joked that I decided I wanted to become a paleontologist the same day I realized I couldn't grow up to be a dinosaur. With that said, though, it's not just dinosaurs that I'm interested in. Sure, dinosaurs are what I excavate during the field season. I'll be doing that in a little over a week out there in Wyoming. Two weeks. Yeah. And streaming that. Can't wait. But also, I dig up other fossil critters too. I'm interested in the history of life on Earth, including the present. And I've recently become utterly obsessed with these critters. Leatherback turtles. We'll be talking about them a lot today, and when I'm in Florida this next week, starting tomorrow. So yeah, but I find dinosaurs fascinating because they're so superlative. This was an incredibly successful group of animals that ruled the Earth for over 150 million years, and our own ancestors, the early mammals, were mostly pretty small during the age of dinosaurs. Very, very small. And the instant, pretty much, that dinosaurs go extinct, except for a few species of bird, when that asteroid hits, suddenly the mammals, which had been looked largely like this for 150 million years, give or take, suddenly they diversify in shape and size and ecology. Suddenly you have cats and rats and bats and whales and camels and dogs and apes and all the mammals that we have nowadays. Something about dinosaurs that made them wildly successful in a way that mammals could only dream of at the time, and mammals in many ways still have yet to attain the incredible kind of dominance that dinosaurs once had. So yeah, there's something about dinosaurs, and it's hard to put into words, but I've been very lucky in the sense that people love dinosaurs. And what I do here on Twitch is kind of use dinosaurs as a springboard for discussions about evolution, biodiversity, common descent, the history of life on Earth, you know? Dinosaurs are what I study, what I dig up, what I publish on in the scientific literature, and they can provide this wonderful kind of window into nature at large, you know? Well, I hope that makes sense. Yeah. A heron. Oh, very cool, Petriaculus. Nice. You're on the road right now? Overdosing on electrolyte supplements. Oh boy, Akira Eclipse. Stuff like Gatorade and stuff like that is, yeah, it's the thing. Yeah. Anyhow. We were talking about what makes a dinosaur earlier. All of these critters here are called dinosaurs not because they're big and scaly, not because they have a particular vibe or something like that. All of these creatures have, well, they have a lot of things in common, but they have one thing in common that makes them dinosaurs. And it's that they all evolved from a common ancestor. In science, this is how we classify living things. When we say that, you know, a critter is a mammal, that means that it, well, sure, it probably feeds its young with milk. All mammals today do. Probably gives birth to live young, doesn't lay eggs. Although we do have a few egg-laying mammals. Why are they still mammals? Why do they get to be? Well, it's because they come from a common ancestor. All of the dinosaurs evolved from one original species of dinosaur. And thus, by definition, everything that is descended from that is a dinosaur. This is phylogeny, common descent. As far as we know, all living things on our planet all descended from a common ancestor about 3 or 4 billion years ago. Every living thing, from kelp to kangaroos to quinoa, you go back far enough and you will find a common ancestor. Some sort of single-celled organism. What we often call Luca, the last universal common ancestor. Oh, and you're Australian, Kelp Devil? Nice. Well, the monotremes are very much mammals. Sure, they might be considered unusual today, but during the Mesozoic, it was probably about half of mammal species laid eggs, or maybe more. Here's mammals right here. And these are mammals because there was one common ancestor that gave rise to all 5,000 plus species. The Therian mammals, including the marsupials and the placentals, and good old monotremes, those egg-laying mammals like echidnas and platypus. Anyway, the point is, living things are related to one another. And when we say that, we don't just mean that they look similar or they've got similar vibes or whatever. We mean that they literally come from a common ancestor. So the animals all came from a common ancestor about 600, 700, 800 million years ago, something like that. The further back you go, the less precise it gets. Yeah. And there you go, Casey. Yeah, mammals. Technically, all mammals start from eggs. It's true. Yeah. Just not necessarily like shelled eggs that are external to the body. Only monotremes do that, but, you know. You and I came from an egg. Just a very small egg contained within mom's body. Yeah. I actually don't know where the word monotreme comes from, Aerospace. That's funny. Anywho, using this concept of common descent, we can sneeze. Excuse me. Oh, God bless me. I should have drank more orange juice. Using our understanding of the history of life on Earth and common descent of different critters, where some of these critters belong on that tree, we can try and guess the mystery animal of the day here in fewer than 20 guesses. We're going to try and do it in fewer than 5.
Hold on to your butts.
Let's start. So the way that this game works is there is a mystery animal today. We got to try and figure out what it is. We figure it out by typing guesses into this box here. And then Metazua will show us the most exclusive, the smallest evolutionary group that contains our guess and the mystery animal. So if we happen to guess really close, it'll be a really small group. If we're nowhere close with our guess, it'll be a big group. And we kind of narrow it down from there, if that makes sense. So I often like to start off with a mammal for this. Claire says, let's start with a rat today. We can do that. Yeah. I like to start with a mammal because this game is kind of heavily biased toward mammals. Mammals are an overrepresented group here. Because there's how many species of mammal? It's like 5,000 plus. And there's a bunch of mammals in this game. Beetles, there's like 400,000 species of beetle. And this game has like 4 beetles. So yeah. But yeah, let's start off with a rat. That's a good place to start. When I'm playing this over the weekend, like I did this weekend, when I'm not on camera, I often like to start with mouse just because... Yeah, so I did this yesterday. It was banana slug yesterday. I started off with mouse, and then giant squid, and then giant clam, and then... I forget what was after that. Some kind of mollusk, and then banana slug.
Hey, there's a thought. You could hire a dinosaur to put a swimming pool in your backyard. All
Tasty
you'd have to do
JK.
is show up for 5 minutes, whop, instant swimming pool.
Thank you, Tasty JK. I
Keep doing your thing.
appreciate your ongoing support. I will continue to do this with your help. Thank you for making that possible with your contribution. Yeah. So it gives you as close as it is. You'll see, Kelp Devil. You'll see. But first, oh man, I have an amusing antidote. It's not vitamin C. Lunia Rose says bongos are cool looking animals. You were suggesting a bongo earlier. It's funny that you mentioned bongo. Here, let's go to the bovids. So bovids are the group that includes cows and antelope and their relatives. Bovidae? Yeah. A friend of mine, who I'm going to see in about a week and a half out there in Wyoming, Fisher McDermott. I think he's out there the whole time. Fisher does this thing where he knows his mammals really well. He's a mammal paleontologist. Fisher will tell you what kind of bovid you are. And it's a joke. It's like just based on like your vibes or how you look or like how you seem. He'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're this one or you're that one." And there's a lot of species of bovid, 137 species. So like we were trying to figure out what's Don DeBlue? What's Uncle Don? And Fisher, he stops and he thinks for a while. He's processing. And Fisher goes, I think he might be Uncle Don. He's a mountain goat. Yeah, that seems right. We were like, well, what's Nick? Nick Oliver. And Fisher thought for a few minutes and he's like, okay, Nick is definitely a bison. Big guy, burly, very American bison, you know? And Charlie's Dragon says, what bovid are you, Danny? So, I asked this to Fisher and he thought for a while. And he said, Danny, you're a bongo. I'm like, okay. I like that. They're pretty cool looking. At first it was like a lesser kudu or something, and he's like, lesser doesn't really make... You know, I'm kind of like, you know, I'm not a huge guy. I'm medium-sized. I'm generally pretty well-liked. People like bongos. It's distinctive looking without being like too off the wall, you know? Maybe you thought it just looked like me? I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, I think I was proud of that. Yeah. Seiko Sama says, I never know those existed until now. But there's so many species of antelope. It's a pretty diverse group, pretty speciose. Yeah. Bovids are a very, very speciose group. Anyway, we're trying to figure out what's Ethan. And, what was it again? I think this is what we came with. Here, Ethan. A dwarf buffalo. Ethan's not the biggest guy in the world either. But, you know, he's charismatic and he's pretty burly and, like, just... Also, it's based on personality. When you've seen enough footage of these animals, you're kind of like, oh yeah, these guys do that, those guys do this. These guys are really high-strung. That particular species of antelope is, like, really chill. For Fisher, who's very lanky, spelled it right? Wrong? Geronuk? Gerenuk. Okay. Yeah. Pretty mild-mannered, but like lanky. Just like precise in the way that they do things. Kind of looks like Fisher, too. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Casey says, I was thinking Fisher, Jarena. Casey, were you there for... I don't think we streamed this conversation, but holy cow, you got it. Yeah. It just felt... See, Casey knows. It just felt right. Yeah. Yeah. Also, Casey is a keen student of animals, so she knows these things. She knows what's up. But that's really funny. Fisher would love to hear that his appraisal of himself was backed up by Casey Snowart. Yeah. An Okapi. Looney Rose, we saw some Okapi about a week and a half ago. In person. Were you there for this?
Almost vestigial, just like in a real Triceratops. Nice. Yeah. Arlie says, I don't think that rope rail is gonna... So this is the closest living relative of the giraffe. I think they might actually be within family Giraffidae.
Hopefully he gets closer. Okapi are so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like, oh no, I think there's a way to do it. And I was like, okay, then can we figure it out? Because if you're not, this window is
Anyhow.
March, and I don't know if I can.
It's so funny, like, other people not realizing they're in a live broadcast and talking about their job search or their...
So, like, literally the thing that they said I wasn't qualified for, at a level higher, I'm now getting recruited for.
This is not the Okapi talking. This is one of the zoo visitors. To be clear.
Well, how the tables have turned. Well, that's very kind. Yeah, internal or external? Is it good? External. Oh, I was going to say it's internal, you go. Yeah. But it's for supply chain.
Anyway. There's so much joy to be garnered from understanding the diversity of animals and how they're related to one another. It's so cool to know these things, and it'll help us for a game like MetaZoo. So let's start off with a rat, like Claire had suggested. That's a good place to start, and we'll go from there. And so this will show us, there we go, already really close. We guessed rat. MetaZoo says, nope, not a rat, but it is within Boreutheria. So this is the smallest evolutionary group that includes the rat and the mystery animal. So since all living things are related to one another, you can kind of think of them as belonging in these nested groups. Within Metazoa, the animal clade here. Animals are part of a larger group called the Phylozoa. So there's close relatives of animals over here. Holozoa includes these critters. Fungi are over here. So animals, fungi, and more are part of a larger group called Opisthocanta. But anyway, we guessed rat. Over here. Okay, Riker Red, welcome. So here's rats, genus Rattus. There's a bunch of different kinds of rats. Anyway, they are over here. We guessed rat, and it says, nope. Not today. Best I can do for you is Boreutheria. So let's zoom out to Boreutheria. This is the group that includes all the Laurasiatheria. Here's Boreutheria. There we go. So this includes the Euarchontoglires, which is rodents and primates and their relatives, and Laurasiatheria. Now, we guessed rat, which is a kind of... that's part of Euarchontoglires, so we know it's not going to be this clade, or else it would have said Euarchontoglires. It doesn't. It gives us a broader group. So we know we've got to zoom out. It is Boreotheria. It's not going to be this. It's got to be some kind of Laurasia theory. So this is a very diverse group of mammals, too. Lots and lots of species, very successful. Everything from rhinos to bats are in this group. And pangolins are in this clade, too. They're right near... They're, what is their... Anodota. What are they called? They're just outside of carnivora. Here we go. There's the pangolins. Pholodota. There we go. So they are the sister group to the carnivorans. The carnivorans, they don't all eat meat, so don't get hung up on the name. But these are lions, tigers, bears, weasels, sea lions, hyenas, mongoose, stuff like that. And the weaselly guys, they're all carnivorans. Carnivorans are overrepresented in Metazoa, and so are the artiodactyls. Right here. The cloven-hoofed ungulates, which also includes whales. Chances are, just by the numbers, our critter's probably going to be an artiodactyl or a carnivoran. So give me a name, an artiodactyl or a carnivoran, and we'll go with one of those. Yeah, let's see. Oh, and very nice, Lindy. You got it at 3. Oh, God. But yeah, give me a carnivoran, chat, or a. Well, let's do blue whale. That's a kind of artiodactyl. That's a hoofed mammal that no longer has hooves. Our critter is an artiodactyl, but it's not a whale. Here we go. Yeah. So, Artiodactyla, also called Cetariodactyla. Once we realized that whales belong in this group, some people decided to rename it. So you'll hear Artiodactyla, you'll hear Cetariodactyla. It's the same group. So we know it's not going to be a whale, as we guessed that. It didn't say whale, it says artiodactyl. So we can cross this clade off. It's probably not going to be a hippo either, or else it would have said clade Whippomorpha. So our critter could be, like I said earlier, a bovid. Could be one of these guys. Could be a cervid. These are the deer and their relatives. It could be an okapi or a giraffe or a pronghorn. Could be a pig, or a member of that family, or it could be a camelid. So there's almost equal likelihood it's... Well, let's go with a bovid, actually. They're the most speciose. Maybe we'll try... Do they have bongo? No. Let's try antelope. Just by the numbers, it could very well be above it. Let's give that a shot.
Hold on to your butts.
And no. Okay, so it's not a bovid. Could be a cervid or a suid, pig family. Or it could be a camelid, camel, or relative. Mayorspace says warthog. Let's try warthog. So warthogs, they're not actually pigs as I understand it, but they are members of the Suiformes. Yeah, warthogs are warty pig, pygmy hog, forest hog, common warthog. There we go. Warthogs are part of Suidae, but they're not. I don't know if they're considered true pigs, whatever that is. Let's try warthog.
Hold on to your butts.
And no. Alright. Not a bovid. Not a suid. not a cetacean or a member of Whippomorpha. It's either a cervid, a deer and or relatives, or some sort of giraffe guy or a camelid. Let's think about this. So we know it's not some sort of piggy guy. It could still be a camely critter, part of Camelidae. This group is also overrepresented, I think, or just proportionally, it's overrepresented in Venezuela. Because I think we've got like camel, alpaca, and llama. There's only 6 species within this family, and we've got at least 3, I think. Camel, llama, alpaca. They don't have guanaco or camelid, or it could be a cervid. Cervidae is a diverse group too. There's moose, there's elk, there's deer, there's caribou, reindeer. Let's try that, caribou. Let's try that.
Hold on to your butts.
And no! Okay, I always forget that they have a subclade here, Pecora, that includes the bovids and the cervids. It's going to be a member of Camelidae, isn't it? No, it's not a cervid. Could still be a pronghorn or a giraffe or an okapi. Do they have okapi? They don't have okapi. We had giraffe not too long ago, so I think it's gonna be that. Gotta be a camelid, right? Casey says alpaca. Let's try that. Let's try alpaca. Ready?
Hold on to your butts.
And that's it! Nice. Okay, 6 guesses isn't terrible. I could have gone a lot worse, for sure. Okay. Not too shabby. Probably forget to do these while in Florida, so not too shabby. Definitely a little unlucky today, just in the sense that, like, yeah. Anywho, yeah. These captains are cool. Alpaca. Let's talk about camelids. Let's see if we can find maybe an Animal Fact Files video about these critters. They have a llama video. We'll watch that. But first, actually, I should play you a song, Chad, if you're not familiar. It's goofy, but when we're talking about ungulates, well, here. Panungulata. So, ungulates. We used to think this was all one group of mammals, and it is, but you have to throw some other ones in there in order to maintain this as a group, so that they're all actually related to one another and come from a common ancestor, in order for this to be a clade. That term ungulate is a little out of date. Nowadays, Panungulata is considered a clade of subungulates. Oh, wait, what? No, I've got this completely wrong. These are Aphrotheres. What? What? I'm glad we looked at this, or I would have said something that's not correct. Yeah. Ungulata has since been determined to be a polyphyletic group based on molecular data. Well, shoot. Okay, that means this goofy song is even more goofy than I thought. What's your favorite ungulate? There we go. Figured I'd share this with you because there is a heavy emphasis on camelids like llamas. Here's a link. Oh, goodness, and there's puppets. Anyhow. The tapirs and horses are perissodactyls. It turns out that they're not actually closely related to llamas or artiodactyls. You get the idea. It's a fun little song, you know? Yeah. Ungulate is no longer really a term. It turns out that a lot of these critters aren't actually closely related to one another. We'll look at that here. So, here's the, well, here's a llama over here. Llama glama. I love that that's the actual genus and species name. Yeah. So these guys are related to the pigs, and the hippos and whales, and the deer, and the giraffes, and the antelope, and the cows, and the bison. These are all artiodactyls, the cloven-hoofed ungulates. But then over here, you get to this split with the odd-toed ungulates, and the carnivorans, and the bats. So it'd be really nice if we could take the perissodactyls, this group that includes horses, and tapirs, and rhinos. We used to just lump them in with the artiodactyls and like, yeah, these are the ungulates, but it turns out these guys are actually closer to the pangolins and the carnivorans. So that whole ungulate thing kind of fell apart when we realized through DNA evidence that rhinos are actually more closely related to pangolins and mongoose than they are to deer or llamas, you know? So yeah, pangolins are so cool. It's a shame that we missed International Pangolin Day this year when I was traveling. And oh, very cool. Hang on, we'll take a look at this from Alexander Morrison real quick before we get into camelids like llamas. Oh, this is nuts.
When Ryan Clapper heard about a crocodile spotted at nearby Gleason Park, he jumped at the opportunity to see it in person.
And this is a crocodile, not an alligator.
There's a crowd of about a dozen people right here. And yeah, right below us was a pretty big croc.
This photographer with a love for all things Florida started taking pictures and video of a reptile not normally seen in the area.
Nuts.
Been shooting for 25 years, lived in Florida nearly all my life, so I'd never seen one in the wild.
It appears the animal came from the nearby Indian River Lagoon.
Cool.
The croc would have had to clear many obstacles to get to the Gleason Pond.
I think he crossed the neighborhood road right over here.
Wildlife experts will tell you it is rare to see a crocodile this far north in Florida, which begs the question, why and even how did this animal end up here?
As populations grow, we expect to see crocodiles exploring new areas.
FWC's Matt Nichols says crocodiles are federally protected. What's amazing is this croc was originally spotted and tagged in the Keys as a young hatchling.
Whoa,
given
really?
The number 40. Somehow the male croc traveled all the way to Brevard County safely. Parkgoers first spotted it in Gleason Park in 2022. So why?
That's nuts. So this croc traveled like half the state. And we know this because it was tagged.
Wildlife experts moved it 50 miles away, but it returned to the same spot again this year.
It is the only one in that area, and it's the northern extent of the range, which the U.S. and Florida.
American crocodiles are native to Florida, more commonly found in Miami, the Keys, or Everglades. Gatorland Savannah Bone says this Brevard croc is no more dangerous than an alligator.
A saltwater crocodile is a Crocodylus porosus, and they are a very aggressive kind of crocodile. An American crocodile
Okay, yeah, shoot. I thought she was calling the American crocodile Crocodylus
is a Crocodylus acutus, and they are not a very aggressive crocodile. They're very shy.
So we did relocate it from Gleason Park due to the safety of the crocodile itself.
Number 40 croc has now been relocated to an undisclosed location. This is a picture before it was removed. Savannah says she won't be surprised if the Brevard crocodile turns up again.
When a crocodile finds a spot that it likes, and this crocodile's been coming back for years now to this same spot, if it finds a place that it likes, it's always going to go back to that same place.
A determined crocodile only looking for a safe place to live and hunt. In Indian Harbor Beach, Randy Roush, Spectrum News.
Very cool. Thank you, Alexander Morrison, for sharing. Here, let's Crocodylus acutus, the American crocodile. So their closest relative is the Orinoco crocodile of South America. Interesting. And the Cuban crocodile and the Belize crocodile. This makes sense. All the world crocs. The Nile crocodile from Africa here. And you get these crocodiles from Asia and Oceania. Crocodile, gharials, and hang on. What is this? What? This is a birthday present from some of the mods in the community a couple years ago. I think Lenina spearheaded this. Thank you, Lenina. But yeah, gharial, fish-eating crocodile, one of my favorite critters. Yeah, sponsored by Danny Anduza, Paleontologizing on Twitch. Good stuff. Yeah, anyway, so the crocodiles are all up here, and they're all related to one another. They share a common ancestor about... I think this date is wrong. I think it should go further back into the Cretaceous. But anyway, they're part of a large group called crocodilians, which also includes the alligators and the caimans. I think this is Alligatoриdae here, is that clade name. Yeah, so it includes the caimans. So caimans and alligators are allied, and they've got very similar looking snouts in many cases. Crocodiles, in general, tend to have pointier snouts. There we go. Crocodile and alligator. So alligators have got this big broad snout like this. crocodiles tend to have a pointier snout. It's almost a U versus a V, if that makes sense. You know? But yeah. Anyway, we might skip the llama video, actually, just because I don't want to get too distracted. And it'd be cool to, let's take a look at this. I know we watched this video before, but it's fun and it's very Florida. Let's take a look. This is neat. Yeah.
There's only one place in the United States where you can find wild native crocodiles. Florida.
Yep.
It's also the only place in the world where crocodiles and alligators live side by side.
And this, as we established earlier, is probably not really true, because you have caimans and members of Crocodilidae living alongside each other, and caimans technically are a kind of alligator. They're part of Alligatoridae. They're part of that family. So yeah, this is not precisely true.
But some of the strangest surprises lie in one of Florida's most unexpected locations.
This isn't a wild swamp or a hidden river.
It's a vast man-made maze of water stretching for miles in the shadow of a nuclear power plant.
Yep.
Why do crocodiles gather in this unexpected place? And how has a landscape shaped by splitting the atom become home to one of America's rarest predators?
So he's going to tell you, but I'm just going to say it's nothing to do with like the radiation necessarily. There is warm water there that comes out of the cooling towers, but I don't know if they're really hanging out near the outlet to that, or I think they just like it because it's a secluded spot. There's good habitat. There's lots of fish and stuff around. I like how Sweetie Pie is admiring the backdrop today. Huh, Sweetie Pie? Yeah, how are you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, it's just a good place to hang out, and there's not a lot of people around. You know, around a nuclear plant, that's like a high security area. These crocs can get some peace and quiet there, you know? I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. And thank you, Alexander. I appreciate that. Enjoy your dinner. Where I'm flying
South
in.
Florida, the land of sun-soaked beaches, palm-lined streets, swanky South Beach hotels, and crocodiles.
Yep.
American crocodiles, to be exact. Cousins of the Nile crocodile, these aren't invasive species like so many of Florida's weird reptiles. They are native and rare.
Yep.
While they might look similar to their more common neighbor, the alligator, there are some key differences. Crocs tend to be longer.
Yep.
They have narrower snouts with more visible teeth. And they have the strongest bite in the animal kingdom.
Fossil evidence tells us that crocodilians have been around for over 80 million years, dating back to the time of the dinosaurs.
And this kind of gets into, like, what is a crocodilian? I usually say crocodiliformes, or just shorten it to crocs. I have heard croc researchers say, you know, call these crocodilians, these things, goniophilids and critters like that from the Cretaceous period, but you know, it's like at what point are we going, oh, well, actually, unnecessarily, you know? Nico the Trash Panda, thank you for the 21 months of support. I really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you.
Paleo dance, paleo dance, paleo dance.
Appreciate that, Nico. Thank you for keeping me here online for 21 months now. Yeah. If they got rich, would they be crocodilianaires? I don't know, Iacade. Maybe that's somebody who owns 1,000 or 1,000,000 crocodiles. Right? I don't know. These are dignified creatures, though. I don't think anybody should be really owning them.
Their lineage remains largely unchanged, which is a testament to their resilience.
And they're not unchanged. Like, some of them are very well adapted to their lifestyle, but, like, there have been lots of times when members of this group have gone off and done crazy, interesting things, like becoming fully marine, getting rid of their scutes and egg-laying, giving birth to live young in the water. Like, you know, again, like we were talking about earlier, you've got these marine crocs from the Cretaceous, and some of them may have even made it into the Paleogene period too. Wild, wild, wild. You know, so cool. And then on land, you had things like the Semikasukians, who were land living. This looks like a dinosaur skull in a lot of ways, even though it doesn't have the improbable fenestra. But yeah, these guys were top predators of mammals in South America during the back in the day, and some of them got very large. Talked about Simasuchus briefly last week, a little pug-nosed plant-eating croc from the Cretaceous of Madagascar. So crocs have done a lot of very interesting things. And, like, if we had an extinction event where, say, all of the mammals and all of the birds go extinct, you might get crocs taking over environments, and, like, you might have ocean-going crocs again, and land-running crocs. Maybe they would have evolved flight. Like, who knows, you know? It's one of those groups that just holds a lot of potential, and given the opportunity, they branch out into new niches and do really interesting, weird things. They've got a long history of that, you know? So yeah, a specimen of a croc who had powered flight. I mean, maybe someday it'll happen, who knows? An Armadillosuchus, yeah, may aerospace. Kind of similar to Simasuchus in the sense that it's armor-plated, but so anyway, I bring all of this up hopefully to make the point. It is very armadillo-like in like developing those osteoderms as armor around its body, and in much the same way that an armadillo has. I bring all of this up to make the point that, like, crocs used to be very, very diverse, and given half a chance, they move into new niches and adopt new lifestyles and body plans and stuff like that. Not body plans, but, you know, it's not like they're growing extra limbs. But, just doing all kinds of really interesting stuff. So thinking of them as being like, oh, well, you know, a croc is a croc is a croc, and they're all crocs, and they all look like crocs, and they're just, you know, they're just crocs. No. It's completely the wrong idea. This is a wildly successful group of animals that's adapted to a bunch of different ecosystems and different lifestyles in the past, and maybe they'll do that again someday, millions of years from now. But first, we gotta make sure that they don't go extinct. And this place in Florida, near the Turkey Point nuclear reactor, is critical habitat, just crucial stuff. It's super important for this species.
At its peak, South Florida's crocodile population may have numbered 3,000 or more. But by the mid-1970s, those numbers had plummeted to just a few hundred.
Jeez.
But some of those elusive reptiles found an unlikely sanctuary right here at Turkey Point Nuclear Power Plant just south of Miami. Turkey Point was built in the 1960s to generate electricity for South Florida's booming population. Energy from this plant powers nearly 1 million homes. But what makes Turkey Point unique isn't just the size or location, it's what surrounds it.
One of the misconceptions that we have is that there's some radioactivity to the cooling canals, and really that's not the case. The crocodiles here are living in the brackish water that is just cycling through the plant, but not actually touching any of the radioactive equipment.
The canal system is massive. It's 168 linear miles of cooling canals. You can actually see it from space.
The water passes through the nuclear plant to remove excess heat. The water then cools as it travels through the canals.
So it works in the same way as the radiator. Once the cooling water has exited the plant, it takes about 48 hours for it to cycle back through again.
At first glance, this just sounds like an industrial solution to an ordinary engineering problem. But over the years, these canals have become something else entirely.
Both of our nuclear units went into operation in the early 1970s. And then in 1978, while doing some work on site, we found a crocodile nest.
So some of my colleagues from Montana State, they've worked here before on these crocodile nests. They're trying to look at taphonomy. So like after the hatchlings hatch out and move on, what happens to the nest? Does it start to fall apart? How long do the eggshells last? All of this stuff. This is really useful information for us as paleontologists. When we find a fossil nest, well, what kind of critter laid those eggs? Today, different species of crocodilian make different styles of nests, and we're still working out a lot of those details and figuring out how do those nests actually get built, and like after they start to fall apart and everything, after the nest is done, you know, those traces that we see afterward, what do they tell us about what the nest looks like at the beginning? So really useful information for us as paleontologists.
Crocodiles were in a lot of trouble. We're talking about a population of about 150 to 300 animals in the 60s and 70s.
The intention when we built the power plant and when we built the cooling canal system was not to have some amazing habitat for endangered species. Once it was created and we recognized that we did have a crocodile nest here, it was really there that we started to learn more about the crocodiles that we had here on site.
And Tipsy Emu asks a really, really good question. Why do we not have any videos of crocs making nests? Nobody's bothered, for the most part. Like, that's one of those things that has really surprised me. One of the most surprising things I think about my career in paleontology, one of the most surprising things I've learned is that sometimes modern species are almost as poorly studied as extinct species. You know, we as paleontologists, we would, you know, we'd give an arm and a leg to be able to go back in time and see this animal alive and watch this one behave and stuff like that. But with many modern species, we can literally do that, and just nobody has, you know? It's kind of astonishing, like how little we know about some of these living animals. Sometimes just, you know, down the road from people's workplaces. Like the guys who work at this nuclear plant, you know, they have an endangered crocodilian there at their work site, you know? So yeah. Interesting. It's very interesting. Also, in this particular case, why don't we have footage of crocs building a nest? That might be something that takes weeks, and like, what are you gonna sit there for weeks with a camera? You can set up a trail cam or something, have a live feed of that. I don't know if anybody's done that yet, you know? So yeah, it's sometimes shocking just how little we know about the creatures that we live alongside today, let alone fossil organisms, you know?
We really have three things that are necessary for the crocodiles. One, the cooling canal system is an ecosystem in and of itself, and so it has the prey that the crocodiles need to eat. We have elevated berms that are used for nesting. And really one of the biggest reasons is because we don't have public on site.
Yep.
We have this whole network of canals where crocodiles can live freely and not worry about human encroachment.
But the presence of crocodiles in these waters isn't just some strange nature sideshow. They play a critical role in this ecosystem.
Crocodiles are at the top of the food chain. Without them, the rest of the food chain falls apart. They're the cleanup crew. They keep other populations in check.
Unlike alligators, crocodiles can tolerate salt water thanks to special glands that help them expel excess salt. They prefer coastal, brackish, and saltwater habitats, the same habitats where the humans of Florida like to build homes.
They got mayor space, maybe.
As we built houses, we were taking away a lot of the habitat from the crocodiles.
So as the crocs of South Florida lost their preferred nesting habitat to human development, some of them turned to Turkey Point as a refuge.
Today, Turkey Point is South Florida's most concentrated nesting area for American crocodiles. And we know that thanks to the work of people like Mike Lorette.
Ever since I was born, I always had this innate obsession with reptiles. So what bigger and badder reptile than a crocodile?
Fair? Well, at least nowadays. I can think of some maybe bigger, badder reptiles during the Mesozoic. Not just dinosaurs, but marine reptiles and things too. But, you know, for today, fair.
Since I was born, I always had this innate obsession with reptiles. So what bigger and badder reptile than a crocodile? Crocodiles are just extremely intelligent creatures, and we really haven't even scratched the surface of their intelligence.
That's probably fair.
Some of the myths of the American crocodile is that they're these basically bloodthirsty beasts. They're nothing like that. Although they're extremely efficient predators, they're actually very shy by nature.
Yep. They're little scaredy cats.
Each year, Mike and his team monitor hundreds of crocodiles here in the canals, tracking their growth, health, and nesting behavior. It's part science, part detective work, sometimes part adventure.
So
I mean, that's how fieldwork generally is. Like, that's when I'm out there digging up dinosaurs, or tomorrow night when I'm out there on the beach with some leatherback turtles, hopefully. It's very similar, you know? That's the beautiful thing about scientific fieldwork, is that you get to go out and see things that no one has ever seen before. And you're making new discoveries outside of the laboratory, you know? I think a lot of people think of science and they, you know, they think of this. And sure, a lot of science is like this, especially some of the best funded science. But a lot of science isn't necessarily like that. A lot of it is fieldwork. You know? This kind of thing. It's lousy that Dinosaur Dig, there's so few actual photos of real paleontological digs. There's one. Yeah, in fact, this looks a lot like some of our work in Wyoming. But yeah. So much science is like that, you know? Or like this.
Health and nesting behavior. It's part science, part detective work, sometimes part adventure.
So mother crocodile will come up here, she'll scratch, she'll open the nest cavity, deposit her eggs, cover the eggs back.
So there is video of this here. Cool, cool, cool.
Back up, and then go back into the water. It'll be about 3 months of incubation until those eggs hatch, and she'll be coming up and down and checking on her nest and protecting her nest in the meantime. This is actually
like a turtle,
a nest cavity that has already hatched, and you can see an egg fragment that's left behind.
See how leathery the eggs are,
Not too long ago, a whole
like a
clutch
chicken
of
egg. It's not
little
brittle.
prehistoric hatchlings emerged from this nest. Depending on the size and age of the female, you're looking at anywhere from around 20 to even up to 50 eggs. Of the 20 to 50 eggs, a very small percentage will survive to adulthood. We have to remember that when they emerge from their eggs, they're these tiny little creatures that are at the bottom of the food chain. They feed pretty much every other predator out there, everything from birds, fish, turtles, even up to crocodiles as well.
Yep.
Crocodiles are actually on the menu for other crocodiles.
As daylight fades, the real action begins. This is when Mike and his team take to the canals, tracking hatchlings and checking on nests.
There's nothing else I'd rather be doing than chasing around crocodiles. The best time of day to catch them is at night.
Yep, there's one there and there's one up there.
Basically, during the day, their camouflage is so good, they're completely hidden from the human sight. But if you go out at night and you wear a headlamp, you can actually see the reflection of their beady red eyes in the darkness of the night.
So that's really cool. Again, this is another thing. Headlamp, I got one for my work with turtles this week out there in Florida. But this is very different. You're doing the opposite. So rather than using a red headlamp so that your light is not bothering the animals or they hardly even notice it, instead you're actively trying to like spotlight them with a bright white or yellow light and then look for their eye shine to find them, you know? Interesting how that works.
Capturing the hatchling crocodiles allows us to get a really good idea of the health of the animals here on site. Healthy hatchling means healthy population.
Guys, new one.
It's important to capture the crocodiles when they're really young because every minute that they're out there, they're learning more. They're extremely intelligent.
So they learn to avoid
Catching
you.
hatchlings is delicate work. Each capture must be quick and careful to ensure the crocodiles are unharmed.
This year, we actually caught 529 hatchlings, which is
Nice. So this was how long ago? A year ago. Shoot.
the third most hatchlings within the history of the program.
That's a good sign, you know? I hope that means that their numbers are going up. Let's check that real quick. On IUCN Red List. Crocodilus acutus. American crocodile. There we go. They're not considered endangered, but they are considered vulnerable? Really? Population trend increasing. Yeah. Number of mature individuals 5,000. Hang on. Wait. What? But this is including Is this really? I didn't know they extended into South America too. I wonder if we could American crocodile. South Florida, Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela. Really? I didn't realize they... Okay. Huh. That's cool. That's good to hear that their population seems to be increasing throughout their entire range across different continents. I hope that our American ones are also increasing in number.
After we catch the hatchlings, we take them back to the lab for processing. Our federal permit allows us up to 5 days to process these hatchlings, but it's always our goal to get them back to the wild as quickly as possible.
Here in the lab, every hatchling collected in the field becomes a vital piece of the conservation puzzle.
We take a series of measurements such as snout to vent length, total length, head length, tail.
So snout to vent length. The vent is the cloaca. So sometimes I think you can get some variation in tail length. So like, you know, from the tip of your snout to the end of your tail might not be the most useful measurement. I think you might actually be able to get more information, like a better sense for how big the individual actually is, if you just go snout to vent length.
We take a series of measurements such as snout to vent length, total length, head length, tail girth. All of these measurements will teach us about the health of the American crocodile.
So tail girth kind of tells
Each
you how well
individual
fed they are.
croc gets two forms of
They store fat
identification. One being a pit tag, which is the size of a grain of rice, and it has a unique identification number. It's the same pit tag that you would put to identify a pet cat or dog. So we actually inject that into the base of the tail. The secondary form of identification is actually clipping their scutes so that there is a visual form of identification that we can actually use to identify.
There we go, yes. There's a missing osteoderm right there. And so this is, and in fact, that might even be an osteoderm. That might just be keratin over the top. It might just be skin. I don't think these are bony up top. So it's not like he's cutting into bone. It's basically like clipping a fingernail or something. Except this will not grow back. That's the point, is being able to identify this one has been captured before. We can leave it alone. And we have data on it too. That's cool.
Identify them without putting our hands on them.
Over the years, the scientists have tagged over 10,000 individuals, creating one of the most comprehensive data sets for any reptile species in the world.
Crocodiles actually have the ability to cover a lot of ground in a little bit of time.
We talked about that earlier with that American croc showing up in Indian River Lagoon.
Every time we catch the crocodile, we're actually be able to compare the new data to the old data of when we caught it initially, find out how far they've moved, how much they've grown over time.
They probably do remember seeing
So we have had crocodiles that have hatched here that have actually popped up in golf courses in Tampa.
But the ultimate goal with these little cuties is to get them back into the wild, where they can grow and contribute to the recovery of their species.
Since the crocodile program began in the 1970s, the population in South Florida has grown from a few hundred individuals to more than 2,000.
Nice.
It's a remarkable turnaround. Turkey Point is a conservation success story, a testament to the surprising ways that industry and nature can coexist.
The American crocodile population was actually downlisted from endangered to threatened in 2007.
Nice.
There's nothing more rewarding
Love to
than
hear
to
it.
be able to help this species thrive.
Places like Turkey Point remind us that progress doesn't just have to come at nature's expense. It can come with it. It just takes a little energy to get things started.
Very cool. Yeah, and that since a lot of people aren't aware of the American crocodile, it's kind of a hidden gem in that regard, you know? Yeah. Pretty cool. Hang on, let me give you a link to that video. There you go. Good stuff. There we go. We're talking about crocs a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other critters, just briefly, in Florida. I gotta go run to the bathroom. Oh, and this is neat. Oh, hang on. Oh, I'm gonna be driving through here later in the summer. Oh, this is super cool. Here, we'll take a look at this. Speaking of wildlife, critters being hit by cars is a huge problem, especially here in the US. But there's ways to prevent that from happening. Check this out. A study from Utah State University found that wildlife crossings have a major impact on protecting both animals and motorists. Wildlife crossings are structures designed to redirect animals to safely cross roads, preventing accidents and protecting local ecosystems. It's like a little bridge that you build over a highway for the animals to cross. Some crossings, like the Parley's Wildlife Overpass, are bridges which allow animals to cross over roads and freeways. There you go. Others are so inconspicuous, drivers may not know that they are driving past wildlife. So some of these are like, like tunnels that go under the road. These often will have fences that kind of corral the animals toward this safe spot. And they're fences that are designed to not let animals through, funnel them through to safety. Trail cameras on Utah's Parley's Wildlife Overpass have recorded everything from porcupines to mountain lions using the crossing. There's a bobcat there. According to the Federal Wildlife Crossing Program, there are more than 1 million accidents between motorists and wildlife every year in the U.S. Oh boy. A new study found that at just one wildlife crossing, the number of collisions dropped by 77%. Impressive. And moose had a 100% success rate of crossing the road safely. Nice. Moose are one of those critters where they are, oh man. People would talk about this in Montana all the time. These bumper stickers were pretty popular. Oh, and these signs too. Yeah. You'd see these signs around. Brake for moose, it could save your life. Because you would hear this on the news every once in a while. Like, yeah, somebody hit a moose and they died. Not the moose. The moose may have been injured or the moose may have been fine. But, like, that person's car is destroyed and, like... Moose are pretty tall. And especially if you're driving a smaller car, your height while driving, like your head neck height, might be about the same as like the moose's belly. And so like people will hit moose and the people will get decapitated. It happens sometimes. Like it cuts your head right off. And of course we don't want the moose to get hurt either. So this is important. That's why these sorts of trail crossings like this are really important. Yeah. Moose had a 100% success rate of crossing the road safely. There you go. Important not just for them, but for motorists too. The study also estimates that one crossing alone could save $15 million by preventing injuries and fatalities, damage to vehicles, and accident cleanup. So it's not just saving the animals and saving people, but saving the taxpayers' money too. And yet still there are folks who are vehemently opposed to this. They're like, that's too expensive. Why are we spending money on wildlife crossings when we could be vaporizing brown children in another country with our missiles? I don't know the logic people have, but yeah. This is a good thing. Utah installed the first wildlife crossing in 1975. Since then, more than 1,500 crossings have been erected in nearly all 50 states. Nice. Yeah, these are some major ones. They're very conspicuous in Utah, and every time I go through... In fact, I'm not going to look, but I probably took a picture of it last time. Let's just take a look at that phone. Anyhow. I would be remiss if I didn't pull up a video about this critter today. And I like that it's hanging this way. This is a recent 3D print that I did of a small-toothed sawfish, and I really like how the underside turned out too. So I wanted to be able to show that off by hanging it up there. There's a sawfish rostrum that I have over here as well. These are really incredible animals, and Florida is the best place to see them in the U.S. We didn't get to celebrate International Sawfish Day this year because I think it coincided with TwitchCon. We had a scheduling conflict. But in previous years, we've talked about these critters. International Sawfish Day. Here, I'll play this. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I will be right back, chat. You behave for our sawfish friends. We're not sharks. They're actually, I guess, a kind of ray. They're such cool critters. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I will be right back. October 17th is International Sawfish Day. Sorry, I thought that video had narration in it, or... unless it was just loud music. There you go. Really, really cool animals, and, there's not a high likelihood at all that I'll see one in Florida, but Florida is probably the best place in the U.S. to see these critters in the wild. They are such cool animals. And if you want to learn more about them, Shark Geek, I think, can tell you a thing or two. As Twitch's kind of resident elasmobranch expert. Yeah, he knows a thing or two about them for sure. Take a look at this from this year, or rather late last year, probably.
Well, sawfish were once a common sight in Florida waters, and now they're endangered. They face a number of threats, including an illness that causes them to spin. But now one is swimming freely in Tampa Bay, and it is thanks to a group effort that made sure a trapped sawfish was able to escape the pond in Palmetto.
Yes, Fox 13's Kimberly Cuisinne reports researchers are thankful to a fisherman with a keen eye.
Locals know it as Bishop Harbor Pond.
Me and my grandpa used to come here a lot.
You'll often find 16-year-old Kane McCree casting a line here.
That's the honey hole.
In early June, fishing from a paddleboard, Kane got a bite during the Fire Charity Fishing Tournament.
I was hoping it was a snook.
A 15-minute fight ended with the catch of a lifetime.
I saw the probably 4-foot-long saw come out of the water.
Kane caught a small-tooth sawfish. After documenting it for the tournament, he let it go. A week later,
I come back and I catch it again.
He figured a nearby culvert with grates was likely preventing the sawfish from swimming out of the area.
I started to think, I was like, maybe it's stuck.
He remembered a freebie from the fishing tournament, a keychain with the number of the U.S. Sawfish Recovery Team.
That said the sawfish number and all that, so that's what I called.
The call went to Tanya Wiley, team leader and president of Havenworth Coastal Conservation.
We're very worried right now about the population of small-tooth sawfish and their ability to fend off extinction.
Sawfish are endangered and face a number of threats, from getting caught in fishing gear to loss of habitat and the recent spinning fish phenomenon, reported in South Florida and resulting in more than 60 confirmed deaths.
It was very important for us to not give up, to make sure we got that sawfish relocated.
It took 3 tries using underwater cameras and drones. The team with NOAA, the FWC, and HCC captured the 7.4-foot female sawfish in the far corner of the pond last week.
We loaded it into a stretcher that had water in it, and it took 8 of us to walk her across the street. And then we brought her over here, took all of our measurements and put the tags on her.
Hey, Leavenworth Coastal Conservation believes there's a good explanation as to how the small-tooth sawfish got trapped here.
This sawfish likely got into the pond when Bishop Harbor Road was underwater during Hurricane Helene.
They released the sawfish with the hope of learning more from samples taken and with gratitude to a young fisherman.
It was critical that we relocate this individual to ensure its chance of survival.
In Palmetto, Kimberly Quizon, Fox 13 News.
So this is the 7th sawfish that Hayworth Coastal Conservation has tagged. They placed an acoustic transmitter that'll help them track the movements of the sawfish all throughout Tampa Bay and hopefully beyond.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Here's a link to that video there. And howdy, Murph. How are you doing? You're having an excellent day. It's good to see you, Murph. Geek Store says, glad that kid was aware. I mean, awareness is always an important early step. There's that Report a Saw program. Take a look at this. Maybe this will be good. Let's get past the intro.
10 or 12 feet long. Check this out.
And I think this is in Florida. This is FWC, that's Florida. Oh, no, hang on. No, maybe not. Fish and Wildlife. Yeah, that's a small-tooth sawfish. Narrow rostrum, small teeth on it. Yeah. This is not exactly what I was looking for here. Nope, that's it right there with the goofy animation here. Pate B says, seriously, these young kids who show actual attention and care to these sorts of things makes me emotional. Like, it's everything that I think is important. It is very cool. It is very cool. And it's up to us folks who are no longer kids to try and get kids interested in this sort of thing and get so that they learn about, it's a cliche, but children are the future. We owe it to them that they have nature that they can embrace, that they can experience and enjoy and be surrounded by, not just for their emotional well-being, but their very survival, These processes around us, like the water cycle and the carbon cycle and everything else, we mess that stuff up by wrecking our surroundings, polluting, introducing garbage, and changing the composition of the atmosphere and everything else. Like, with it, it's not just an aesthetic thing. It's not just, I think, we should be able to enjoy nature. That's very important, but also our very survival depends on that. Future generations will have miserable short lives if we don't get our act together now, And sometimes that's big, broad things like, hey, we need to stop putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Stop just polluting the air with all kinds of crud that heats our planet. It can be big things like that, or it could be granular things like, hey, let's keep track of sawfish and gather data on them. Like this thing.
Welcome to the CSAW Citizen Science Sawfish Project. In this project, scientists are asking for you to measure, photograph, and record any sawfish saws that you may have. Researchers are exploring the differences between sawfish saws from throughout the world to better understand the 5 species of sawfish which are at a high risk of becoming extinct. For this project, researchers have to measure a large number of saws, and they have asked us at the Sawfish Conservation Society to
more
reach
data,
out
the
to
better.
you to help them with this important task.
And so this is one of these things where you'd be surprised how common these sawfish rostra are. Mine right here is a 3D print, you know? It's not a real one. But this used to be like a really popular kind of curio or display piece that... It's the sort of thing that you absolutely would have seen on the wall. Like at the Adventurers Club back in the day in Orlando. They probably had several sawfish rostra on the walls there. But I've been to, I don't know how many different, like, not just museums, you'll often see these in museums too, but like in a bar or something like that, especially like a tiki bar. I don't know how many sawfish rostra I've seen just hanging up there. And then in a lot of professors' offices and stuff too. Because like maybe this is in the collections at the museum, but you know, it's a big ungainly thing. It's like, well, let's put it up on the wall in the office. So yeah, it's less uncommon than you might imagine. These things are around, and it's important to be able to leverage those for important information if we can. You know, they're out there. So here's how you can do that.
Although we would like you to report any saws that you already have, we do not want anyone to remove these from live sawfish, as the sawfish need these to hunt and protect themselves.
It's an integral part of their body.
We also ask that you do not measure saws from live sawfish, as it can be dangerous to you and to the sawfish.
Yeah.
You are going to need a few things to get started. These include your sawfish saw, your data sheet, or the online form, both of which can be found at the SES website, your measuring tool, and your camera. Now let us get familiar with the saw and the measurements you are going to need to take.
So anyway, they kind of walk you through, you take these measurements here, this is all the important data that they need, and you upload it to the website. Good stuff. I think there are... I want to say there's 2 species of sawfish that occur in Florida. Yeah, both large tooth and small tooth sawfish, I think, are known from Florida. Large tooth sawfish. Large tooth sawfish are critically endangered. Oh boy, recent research based on very few encounter records suggests that large tooth sawfishes may still exist in some parts of the Gulf of Mexico, albeit in very low numbers. Encounters on a world map. There we go. So here is the state of Florida. And each green dot is a logged encounter with a sawfish. I think these are all small tooth sawfish. Yeah, and we can find something similar on iNaturalist. Small tooth sawfish. No observations. What? No, not. We can't get rid of that. Florida. There we go. I guess this is peak time of year to see them right now. that's kind of cool. While I'll be there in Florida, again, I very much doubt I will be lucky enough to see one. They're not common. And I'm going to be mostly hanging out around this area. There's only a handful of sightings. But yeah, there's one right there. You can see the fin coming up there. And look at that rostrum. Look at that. Pretty cool. So yeah, I'm not going to see one of these. I would not be so lucky. That's... But yeah, very cool. It does make me wonder if large-toothed sawfish... Are there any large-toothed sawfish sightings in Florida? Common sawfish, no longer very common. No observations in Florida. Jeez. Interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I put these up on the wall today because that's a really cool critter that exists in Florida. Well, the small-toothed sawfish, at least. This is a large-toothed sawfish there. But my likelihood of seeing one is just about 0. Guitarfish, on the other hand, instead a higher likelihood. In fact, there is a shovel-nosed guitarfish that was just reported from right near where I live, right here in the beautiful sunny San Francisco Bay Area. In fact, literally just right over there. Like this is, I think this is Crissy Field Beach or nearby. It was literally just near where the camera is here. Let me show you. These are not particularly, they're not super closely related to sawfish, I don't think. There you go, right here. This is one that was actually found dead, I think, at Crissy Field Beach. But yeah, right there in San Francisco. Okay, so it's right at the mouth of the lagoon there. Makes sense. Fossils of these guys go back to the Cretaceous, and I have found many, many, many teeth from this group of animals over the years. So they existed back in the time of the dinosaurs, and they're still around today. East Texas. Oh, that would make sense, Murph. Yeah. Anyway, guitarfish are really cool. Let's see how close they are to guitarfish and sawfish. How closely related are they? Well, neither one of them is a shark. They are both part of, what is it, Rhinobatoidea? Batoidea, there we go. The raised skates and sawfish. So sawfish are going to be... Oh, here's the guitarfish. Guitarfish. Right there, nice. And how far are they from, say, small-toothed sawfish? Pretty close, actually. Wow, they're more closely related than I thought. Neat. Yeah. Very cool. Can you play them? No. This isn't a 1920s cartoon, Kelp Devil. But yeah. Anyway, cool critters. And both guitarfish and sawfish can be found in Florida, along with lots and lots of other critters. I want to take a step back for a minute and just talk about the geology of Florida for a minute. I've got a book about this, and anytime I spend a significant portion of time in any state, if there is a book available on the roadside geology of that state, I tend to pick this up. I was a little bit surprised to learn that there was a roadside geology of Florida book, because Florida is extraordinarily flat. It's one of the flattest of all U.S. states. I tend to associate geological outcrops with, you know, high relief. Mountains and canyons and mesas and, you know, deep gorges and valleys and stuff like that. Florida doesn't have any of these. But there is still geology. Florida is a state that is, nearly all places, it is shaped by the geology underneath. And here's a nifty little video that I found right before starting today's stream that we take a look at. And Mayor Space jokes, is there a drumfish? Yes. No, a drum is, I don't know if it's called a drumfish, but there's kinds of fish that are called drums. But yeah. There we go.
Since Florida has been moving with the rest of North and South America away from Europe and Africa, we entered these glacial, interglacial cycles, which basically means there are times when the Earth became much colder.
Oh, cool, Alina. Nice.
And much of the water in the atmosphere and in the ocean became trapped in large glacial ice sheets that covered much of North America and Europe.
Yep.
In the interim, we would also alter into interglacial cycles, which basically meant that all these ice sheets melted and sea level came back up, and Florida decreased in size and in many cases became submerged. So when it was completely submerged, coral reefs and lots of other organisms would build up what we call the Florida platform.
Yep. So here's the thing, is that Florida, during different times in Earth history, has been completely submerged, and sometimes it's been dry land. And a lot of that depends on sea level. Here we go. 240 million years ago, Florida wasn't a thing yet. Here's North America, South America, Africa. There is Florida. We've got this helpful outline right here. But this was just in the middle of Pangaea, this massive supercontinent. As the continents start to break apart, you get the Atlantic that starts to rift open right here. Like that. Basically where Florida is. But what's interesting is that, as we'll find out later in some of these videos, spoiler, Florida is actually part of Africa, in the sense that the bedrock underneath Florida was once part of the African continent. It's a little piece that got taken off and kind of stitched onto the edge of the North American plate. So when sea levels were high, like here at the end of the Jurassic period, there was no Florida. At least Florida was not dry land. You have underneath that piece of the African plate there. And then, as the geologist was just saying in that clip, the Florida platform was being built by all of these marine organisms. Corals and rudist reefs and bryozoans and all kinds of critters like that, kind of building on top of one another and creating this kind of platform underneath. So with that platform on the ocean floor, built up from the sea bottom, if sea level drops enough, it becomes dry land, and you can walk around on it. So sea level rose again in the Cretaceous, and even the middle of North America was inundated by seawater. Florida is very much underwater here. But later on, 50 million years ago, 35 million years ago, sea levels were lower than they are today. And Florida was like 3 times as big. Really cool. 20 million years ago, it was inundated again. And today, it is mostly dry land. So interesting how that works, right?
And sea level came back up, and Florida decreased in size, and in many cases became submerged. So when it was completely submerged, coral reefs and lots of other organisms would build up what we call the Florida platform, which kind of later turned into limestone and is what most of Florida is built on today. And that platform of limestone is hundreds to thousands of feet thick over much of Florida.
And this is built of fossils. So limestone like that is built up of the calcareous shells of ancient invertebrates. Clams and brachiopods and snails and other invertebrates like this. This is built on the skeletons of animals, essentially. It's really cool to think about, you know? And Murph says, question, Louisiana 240 million years ago on that map had no bottom half. Oh, so a lot of modern-day Louisiana is built on detritus from the Mississippi River. So it's fairly new, and now that the Mississippi has been dammed in so many places, the flow of that sediment has been cut off, and you already know this, Murph, that Louisiana is disappearing. Like, it's shrinking in size as a result of that. But let's go back to that. There are 240 million years ago. Oh, this is just a map artifact. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. That's the thing, is that, like, we can come up with these diagrams to show, like, oh, well, here's where modern countries would be. On a map of Pangaea. Like we have right here. But this requires a lot of artistic license. Because the person or people who put this particular map together here, they were trying very, very hard to maintain the same shapes of all of these different countries and everything, so they'd still be recognizable. Here you can tell they've got Chile and Argentina. They've kind of squished these so they're kind of curving, so it'll actually meet up with the southern tip of Africa. But for the most part, like, the outlines of these modern countries are very much recognizable. That is not how it actually works in real life. Things morph and squash and squeeze and stretch. So this is like a super, super, super simplified version of that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. Dr. Tara, thank you for that news. Very cool. Oh, neat. Hang on, I wonder if that is... Okay. I was waiting on a different paper that sounds Dicelotosaurus, cool. Oh, it's neat that Dicelotosaurus is getting some attention. Thank you, Kazbara. Kozbarao, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Anyhow, I'll take a look at those papers later. Thank you, Dr. Terry. Florida is largely built on limestone like this. The shells of these ancient marine invertebrates. Corals and clams and snails and brachiopods and all kinds of critters like that.
So when it was completely submerged, coral reefs and lots of other organisms would build up what we call the Florida platform, which kind of later turned into limestone and is what most of Florida is built on today. And that platform of limestone is hundreds to thousands of feet thick over much of Florida.
And that can potentially offer some, shall we say, challenges? Some people might say dangers. Florida is kind of famous for its sinkholes, as you'll see here in this news report.
3 days after this massive sinkhole opened in Lakeland, crews are still working to fill it in, and there's no timeline of when that process will be complete. This is Sky 10 video. This is from earlier today right here as crews try to fill this hole with sand.
Part of nearby Scott Lake Road is still closed tonight, and people who live nearby have either left their homes or are prepared to at a moment's notice.
10 Tampa Bay's Hannah Deneen has been following this story since Friday and spoke with an expert about why Polk County is known for being part of Sinkhole Alley.
That's the limestone.
Dave and Carolina, this is a sinkhole map from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, with each of these yellow dots representing a reported sinkhole. And you can see the highest activity occurs in our region of the state, West Central Florida.
The area of concern in the state of Florida is where the geology consists of older limestone that over time has an opportunity to dissolve and form cavities and caverns.
Tony Randazzo, Professor Emeritus of Geological Sciences at the University of Florida, has studied sinkholes for 4 decades, while Hernando Hillsborough and...
Hang on, what's his name? And what was that? Well, hang on a minute. Thank you, Nitzler. Hey, I really appreciate that. Holy moly. Thank you for that contribution. That will help with the Florida trip, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Excellent. That's thoughtful of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Tony Randazzo. Is he one of the authors on the... No. There's got to be a lot more geologists in Florida than I realize. Again, when I think of geology in a state, I'm usually thinking of, Badlands. I'm not thinking of the kind of topography that Florida has.
Randazzo, Professor Emeritus of Geological Sciences at the University of Florida, has studied sinkholes for 4 decades, while Hernando Hillsborough and Pasco counties are known as Florida's Sinkhole Alley. Randazzo says nearby Polk County, Lakeland specifically, is also a hot spot.
So many of the lakes in Polk County, they're sinkhole lakes. They're older sinkholes that are filled with water, and they have the potential to unplug.
He says this time of year we see sinkhole weather.
It's a time when you have extensive periods of rainfall over a short period of time, and that could cause the triggering of sinkholes.
And while the vast majority of homes are on safe, stable earth, he advises not to let testing fall through the cracks.
And there are a number of different companies in the state that can provide testing.
Now, in 2006, nearby Scott Lake was drained by a sinkhole left that way for years. Today, the Southwest Florida Water Management District tells me it's been monitoring the lake's water levels for any impacts from this sinkhole. It says it has not noted anything out of the ordinary, but adds it cannot make any predictions about the sinkhole's behavior or whether it could spread into Scott Lake. Hannah Deneen, 10 Tampa Bay.
The sinkhole is on private property, and the responsibility of filling it falls on the shoulders of the developer that owns the property. It's unclear when the process of filling the hole will be completed.
Don't fill it with limestone or it might dissolve again. Anywho, it's important to understand the geology in Florida, especially if you're going to be doing things like buying property or living on property. These are important things to understand, you know?
At the same time, the Appalachian Mountains, which used to be much, much larger than they are today, began to erode. And much of the sediment that was produced during that erosion actually came to overlay much of Florida, which is where most of our sand comes from, on our barrier islands, on our beaches.
That is really cool to think about, that like the Florida Keys, sandy beaches there, much of that sand comes from the Appalachian Mountains. Geology moves is exactly clear. Yeah.
As a peninsula, Florida has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. About 22,000 years ago, the west coast of Florida was almost 100 miles further out in the Gulf than it is today. On the east coast, it was at least 5 miles further out.
And it's kind of been shrinking since then. And continues to shrink to this day, unfortunately.
So this would have been a realtor's dream. This huge, massive land, open, somewhat arid, wasn't as tropical, wasn't as lush as it is today, but nonetheless a great place for people to live with, co-inhabiting with animals, with all kinds of resources.
So yeah, we're talking about the Pleistocene there. So in the grand scheme of things, put it all in perspective. Look at our time chart here. So Mesozoic era, age of the dinosaurs, asteroid hits 66 million years ago. Bird. Oh, and birds survive. Not all the dinosaurs die out. Didn't mean to hit that button. We're talking about not 66 million years ago. 22,000 years ago is within these black pixels, basically at the top of the Pleistocene epoch right here. That's very, very, very recent. So when he talks about people living alongside critters like this, mammoths, mastodons, ground sloths, that's legit, you know, it was very, very recently.
With animals, with all kinds of resources.
So the last glacial period.
And Murph says for sea levels to lower, they have to be trapped as ice in glaciers. Not necessarily, Murph. There's stuff that I don't quite understand super well, but like, you can get things that happen where the continents themselves can actually sink. And there's other things that it can occur with, like, you can get undersea mountain ranges that form and they can displace water and raise sea levels, or with subduction, those things can disappear, I think. The sea floor can actually rise for various reasons. There's stuff about this that I only have the vaguest grasp of. But it's not always because of ice that sea level drops. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Again, it's... I need to talk to Jim more about this kind of thing, because I feel like I could pick up a lot of info from it. Yeah. And do I think that the Western Interior Seaway could have lowered levels in other places? Well, no, because I mean the water is always just gonna be where it's at, you know? Like, gravity is gonna pull it to the lowest point regardless. So yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
It was very dry because much of the water was locked up in these glaciers.
Yeah.
As we moved into the interglacial stage, which is currently what we're in because we don't have these huge massive ice sheets covering all of Canada, the climate also began to become warmer and wetter in the state of Florida.
Quiz time. What type of rock is Florida primarily made of? Well. Is it A, quartz, B, slate, C, limestone, or D, marble? We just watched this. This is probably made for school kids. Historical Society of Palm Beach County. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. It's limestone. We just talked about that. Yeah. Where do the majority of sand on Florida's beaches come from? The Appalachian Mountains. Yep. And Kennedy jokes, it's made of rockets. Well, funny thing is, I got this book for the trip here. It's really good. I'd recommend this. This is all about things that you might find on the beach in Florida. And I was showing this to Ios the other day. There we go. Things you might find on the beach: military flares, sonobuoys, and rocket parts. So literally, it's not unheard of, maybe it's not even rare, to find parts of rockets on the beach in Florida. Especially if you're near, say, Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy now. Yeah. And there's sometimes a lot of military activity out there too, like training missions, like helicopter crews learning how to hunt submarines and stuff. So they're launching listening devices into the ocean, and those will wash up on the beaches. So yeah, that is very much a thing. So yeah, rocket parts. What is an interglacial period? It's between the glacial periods.
And this was a mosaic.
And what was the whale book you showed us the other day? I didn't see it at MBA. Oh, whale book. What would that have been? Hang on. Oh, Spying on Whales. Yeah. Nick Pineson's book. There we go. There you go. It's good stuff, and you can get it as an audiobook too. Ought to do it. I would recommend it. Yeah. Good stuff. You're welcome. Thanks for asking. All right, back to Florida geology here.
Mosaic of different environments. North Florida, Central Florida, South Florida were probably quite different from one another as they are now.
So this peninsula that we're on, it has varied in how much has been above sea level over time. So what you get is in the northern part of Florida, you have some more topography and you have these rolling hills. And what that creates is this kind of sandhill, drier, kind of forested area. And you get in the bottom of those channels and you get these rivers, these blackwater rivers, the Apalachicola and the Swanee and all these. And interspersed in those rivers are these hardwood bog systems, these really kind of primordial swamps. As you move south in the peninsula, you start to flatten out a little bit, but you still have this central ridge which turns into this scrub habitat. And beyond that, on the sides of that ridge, you start to get into these vast pinelands, which extend here around the sides of the lake. And then when you really hit Lake Okeechobee and you get to real true South Florida is where we really flatten out, and essentially we become a swamp with a coastal ridge that has that scrub habitat. But everything else is these vast pinelands until you get to the Everglades, which is the River of Grass, which is dominated by these swamp systems with these little pineland and hardwood hammock islands interspersed within this vast swamp.
And that's a term that I keep hearing, and at first I thought they were referring to literal hammocks, like, one might sleep in. But no, I guess this is just like... Look it up. What does that term actually mean? hammock ecology, a dense stand of trees. Okay. Yeah. Form an ecological island in a contrasting ecosystem. Hammocks grow in elevated areas, often just a few inches high, surrounded by wetlands that are too wet to support them. Cool. So it's like a little tree island. Interesting. Okay. Ecological term. Oh, you already posted it. Thank you, Claire. Very cool. Neat. Okay. Good to know. I think it's a misunderstanding of another word. It's just become the word for it. That happens a lot, especially in English. Charlie's checking, yeah.
One of the neatest features in the north area is that a lot of that is higher land,
And
not super high. We're talking a couple hundred feet.
She Geek says, Florida native here. It's a beautiful place, crazy, beautiful, and unique. Thank you, She Geek. I'm flying out tonight, and I'll be there for about a week, and I am very, very excited. I've been to Florida a number of times throughout my life, but it's always, I think, always been to the Orlando area. I'm heading out to the Treasure Coast of Florida. Flying into Miami and then driving north. There we go. Focus this up. There we go. Yeah, to the Treasure Coast area, which is prime nesting grounds for marine turtles, especially leatherbacks. So I'll be up near like Jupiter, Juno Beach, that kind of area, up by Loggerhead Marine Life Center. So yeah, good stuff. And no, not going to the Everglades this time, but who knows? You know, like for this trip. I'm making connections in the sea turtle world. I'm talking to folks. I'm starting to do some field work, all of that good stuff. We'll see if I end up returning to Florida. I'd like to soon, and maybe I'll get a chance to go to the Everglades because I've never been. Yeah. And yeah, She Geek, on Friday we interviewed Justin Peralt, VP of Research at the Loggerhead Marine Life Center. Here is a link to that interview.
We've satellite tagged her twice. We put an acoustic transmitter on her once. She's just big and really loyal to Juno as well. A lot of these leatherbacks we see are one and done. We'll see them once a season or once every 10 or 15 years. You know,
this is awesome, and I'm going to be doing field work with Justin and his crew tomorrow night. Oh, I can't wait. Yeah. Very excited. Very excited. Let's get deep.
But there are a number of in the north area is that a lot of that is higher land, not super high. We're talking a couple hundred feet, but there are a number of dry limestone caves. There are freshwater springs as you move from the north and down into the central part of Florida that we don't have down here. And that area is just elevated enough above the sea level that you have fresh water that's been coming from farther north, even outside of Florida.
So the coast really kind of changes dramatically, especially on the East Coast as you come further south. Up in North Florida in the Jacksonville area, these salt marshes, it's dominated by this black needle rush in these salt marshes that have these sinuous channels in them. Tons of oyster habitat up there. As you move further and further south, you get into these vast expanses of estuary like the Indian River Lagoon. And that's where you start to transition from that salt marsh to the mangrove habitat. And we do still have salt marsh down here in Palm Beach County, but we have transitioned to the vast majority of our estuarine habitat is that mangrove swamp habitat that lines the coast. What makes Palm Beach County really cool is we're right on that edge of the subtropical climate and of the temperate zone. So we are right on that transition where you're starting to pick up some of these exotic kind of hardwood species, these tropical species that occur throughout the Caribbean and in some of Central America. But they make their way up the coast from the Keys, where there's a lot more of this tropical hardwood diversity, up the coast into Palm Beach County. We don't have nearly the diversity, but we do have some of those tropical hardwoods making their way up into our county.
So all of Florida is zone 9, 10, and all the way down in the Keys is 11. And what that really, the key thing they're referring to is what are the average of the coldest temperatures in the winter. So basically, Palm Beach County has a little bit, well, it's all in zone 10, but it has a little bit of an area that is warmer, sneaking right up there along the coast and then encompassing Boca Raton, and a little bit that's a little bit cooler.
Nice.
But pretty much we don't get a lot of frost. Whereas when you get to Central Florida and then especially Northern Florida and the Panhandle, they regularly get frost in the winter. Not super hard freezes like farther north, but they do get frost.
You could think of Florida as one big estuary, so it's a transition between a freshwater and a saltwater environment. And the Everglades are one big estuary, and before humans got involved, we had the Everglades in their more natural state. That was almost half the state of Florida, was one big estuary. During wetter periods, we do see more dominant freshwater environments. And we can see in our streams and our rivers where we have this transition from a saline saltwater environment closer to the coast to a more freshwater environment further inland that will have more freshwater. And then obviously when we enter a drought period where we don't get as much rain, the amount of freshwater discharging through streams may decrease, and we may get more of a seawater interaction in that environment.
Stuff. Right, quiz time. What is the Indian River Lagoon? Is it an estuary, a marsh, a swamp, or a peatland? It's an estuary. We've got saltwater and freshwater mixing. What climate zone is Palm Beach County in? This is going to be temperate climate. Yeah. Oh, cool. It's neat to find these concise little videos where it's like, here's the geology of this region. We've interviewed some, it's not a homemade video, but it doesn't have a huge production budget either. It's like, this is from the Historical Society of Palm Beach County. They've got people working on it who are more or less professional, but it still feels homegrown. It's kind of charming in that way, and I like that, you know? Yeah. Kennedy says t-shirts and shorts in February. It's, in that respect, it's a lot like where I live, in the beautiful sunny San Francisco Bay Area. I think there's been like a couple of times over the past 12 months when I've worn long pants. But, you know, every day's a short stay for me. Oh, and very cool, Pirate Kitty's nice. I'm really excited to see some alligators. Really excited to see some cycads, hopefully. Florida is, I think it's the only state in the United States where you can see native cycads growing. The Kunti cycad. This is a group of plants, the cycads, that goes back to the Mesozoic and earlier. There's only a few species of these left in the world today that used to be dominant on our planet. But they're kind of your quintessential, like, ooh, prehistoric plant. Florida has them, growing wild. native. I don't think Georgia or Alabama has these, but I could be wrong. Let's look it up. Don't have to speculate. There we go. Yeah, okay. No, going into Alabama and Georgia. Although this one might be cultivated. Or it might be wild. Cool. Alright, so Florida's not the only state. I guess you can find a few in Alabama and Georgia as well. Maybe even one or two in South Carolina. But anyway, Florida's the stronghold for these. Which is cool. So many up here. North of Orlando. Shoot. I'm gonna be... I looked this up earlier. There should be some around. And I'm excited to log those on my naturalist. So I'm gonna see gators. Hopefully I'll see some cycads. I'd love to see a bunch of species of bird that I've never seen before. But of course, the critter that I'm going to Florida to see is this. Dermichelys coriacea, the leatherback turtle. Largest living turtle on our planet. Basically a refugee from the Mesozoic era, a holdover from the Cretaceous period. And they are still around. Florida is the place to see them in the U.S. And I cannot wait to meet some leatherback turtles in person. Get involved with research and conservation on these animals. Very excited. At Sanibel Island, Spike. So I'm actually going to be hanging out with some folks who this is their job, is to work with these critters. We will wrap things up a little bit early today, because I still have to pack all my things and get ready to go. I figure we'll take a look at this. Another one of these lovely local videos produced by the School District of Palm Beach County. About Florida sea turtles. And you might see some familiar faces in there too. But first, let me show off, actually, some stuff that I was working on yesterday. Let me show you. Remember I was displaying briefly those silk screens that I had produced so I could print some shirts. Finally, yesterday I got around to printing those shirts, so let me show you. All right, I made a few. Different designs. The genus name of the leatherback turtle, Dermichelys here. So I think I did 3 or 4 of these, but that'll be fun. Did one in green, so it's all wrinkly. I figure out which ones of these I want to pack, because I did make quite a few shirts. Here's my design with the leatherback turtle silhouette. This is the same one that I uploaded to PhiloPig, actually. But, yeah. I thought that was a fun one. Did that in a few different colors. And then... I also made these, which are a lot of fun too. So 3 different designs printed on a bunch of different individual shirts. But, Not too shabby. I'm excited about that. Again, I designed these all myself. College fight song. I don't know, Claire. We'll see. But this will be fun. I've been experimenting with some different, like mixing some different colors of ink together to get kind of like an interesting tie-dye sort of pattern on some of these. But yeah. So that was something that took a lot of work, but not as much as this next thing. This is the project that I've been working on for months and months and months, and still need to do a little bit of work on. And Blue Sky is just not loading. Shoot. I'll just show you the finished product then. Last summer, I had the idea of making a leatherback turtle bobblehead just because I thought it would be really cool to have, and I thought that would be a neat gift to be able to offer people as a token of gratitude. As I get to know some of the folks who work with leatherback turtles, I figured they might appreciate this too. Take a look. I have now painted and finished this one here. I've got 3 more that just need to have the heads installed, basically. But check that out. I'm very proud of how the paint job turned out. It's I like this a lot. So I'm gonna have one of these in the rental car. I'm very excited about that. I put sand on the bottom because this is like a nesting female, and also I didn't want to have to paint the bottom, so I just put some 2-part epoxy on there, and yeah. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. So yeah, and the eyes. I wanted the eyes to be really glossy. So I put a little bit of the smoothing compound on there too. But yeah, and a nesting leatherback when she's on the beach, her skin will actually kind of flush pink like this. The camera's not doing a great job of picking this up, but this is painted pink on the underside. I assure you it's much more vibrant.
I do call myself an expert in dinosaur studies.
Jeff Banyan, thank you for the 6 months of support.
Those are amazing. Maybe bobble the other parts?
I thought about doing that. If we had like a turtle swimming and then the flippers would also move, that would be cool. But for now, this is what I've got. So I've got 4 of these, and they all look different.
If you're feeling a bit cheated, try blaming the dinosaur.
Thank you, Hogan, for the 100 bits. I really appreciate that. These take a lot longer to paint than I was expecting, but I think the end result is pretty good. Yeah, here's the others. Still have to be assembled. Right here. But, Akira says, how did you make it? I 3D printed them. So I found a really good file for a leatherback turtle sculpt online. I didn't sculpt the whole thing from scratch, but I might do that in the future. If we decide to, like, make this into a bigger project. But, yeah. I was able to modify that file, embiggen the head, and I took apart some commercially available bobbleheads to see how they work, and then figured, hey, I can turn this model into a bobblehead and 3D print it and then paint it, and here we are. Yeah. I'm excited to give a few of these away as gifts to some of the leatherback turtle people that I've met recently, and some of the people I'll be working with next week.
Sea turtles are one of the most beloved of all creatures. Graceful flyers, gently gliding through the ocean currents.
I picked this out because it is another one of these like charming, locally produced things, and these are some of the people I'm going to be working with, like tomorrow night.
Driving down the beach on an ATV. It looks like fun, but this is all business. Think of the sand as a giant laboratory. The subject? Sea turtles, large and small. Why they're choosing to live here. The unique way South Florida's climate affects their gender. And some of their biggest threats from both people and nature. South Florida is known for its beautiful beaches, its clear blue water, and plenty of sunshine. It's also home to some pretty amazing creatures, endangered sea turtles. Hi, I'm Kate Wentley. Join us as we explore the life cycle, the challenges, and triumphs of this endangered species.
Not one endangered species, there's like 5 that exist in Florida, 3 of which are common. The green, the loggerhead, and the leatherback.
1.5-mile stretch of coastline is the prime nesting ground for 3 different species of them.
Yep.
In fact, this area is considered the most densely nested site in the world for loggerhead sea turtles. It's also one of the most popular nesting sites for several other species as well.
Yep, including the leatherback. That's why I'm going there.
Species that primarily nest on our beaches.
And does that voice sound familiar to anyone?
As we have the leatherback sea turtle, which arrives first, usually in around March. We have the loggerhead sea turtle, which is kind of our most common turtle that we have here in Florida, and they come second. Usually we'll get some nests maybe in April, and they kind of peak in June and July. And then we also have green turtles that nest very frequently here as well, and they're kind of the latest to arrive and bring us through the end of the season. We'll also occasionally get a rare hawksbill or a Kemp's Ridley turtle that will nest in Florida, as those are commonly in our waters, but as far as nesting, it's those 2 species are very rare.
So again, we just interviewed Justin on Friday, and that was quite the honor. Again, I'll give you a link to that VOD.
There we go. Shoulder. We've satellite tagged her twice. We've put an acoustic transmitter on her once. She's just big and really loyal to Juno as well.
This is such a cool interview.
In the literature was considered,
and I didn't really bring it up during that stream when I was talking with him, but
and I think more
hopefully I'll have photos and stuff that I can show you afterward of my field work. I'm joining Justin's crew tomorrow night on the beach.
The majority of our tracks, the leatherbacks that we...
So it's, I'm pretty excited.
The hawksbill turtle, while an infrequent guest on land, is a common visitor to the local reefs, which offer a fine meal for the endangered reptile. So what makes this particular part of our coast so attractive to sea turtles? Perhaps it's not one thing, but many.
It is a bunch of things.
This stretch of beach seems to have the perfect conditions that the turtles need for nesting, and that's a combination of a lot of different factors, not a single factor. But the quality of the sand, the temperature, the currents going past the area, the fact that the Gulf Stream is so close to the beach, all of these things kind of play into it and make this narrow, short stretch of beach extremely popular with the turtles for nesting purposes.
This nest was laid by a loggerhead sea turtle.
Sarah Hirsch monitors these beaches as data manager for Loggerhead Marine Life Center. She records when and where the nests are laid,
she might even be
and
out
which
there
species of turtle is responsible. Most often, she doesn't actually see the mother turtle, but there are some telltale signs. This may look like ordinary sand, but to those in the know, this sand and the delicate patterns in it hold many clues as to exactly what kind of turtle made these tracks.
Each of the different species kind of crawls in a different pattern. So the loggerhead sea turtles, they crawl with an alternating gait. That means they're moving their flippers kind of one at a time. So we can see that in the sand. So that's what we noted in this case. The green sea turtles actually crawl with the simultaneous gait. So they're crawling with both flippers kind of coming up the beach at the same time, and that leaves a different pattern in the sand that we're looking for. We also have leatherbacks that nest on our beaches. Those tracks are very easy to see because they are huge. You cannot straddle a leatherback nest. That's how you know you have one. Their tracks are 6 feet wide, and so they're bigger than I am. So that's how we can determine what species of turtle laid the nest. We document that information on the date that the nest was laid, and then we can mark that nest with a stake. This stake lets us know that there's a nest in front of it, and we're going to look at that area every single day while the nest is incubating. So again, for about 55 days until this nest hatches, we're gonna check on it every single day, make sure that predators aren't getting into it. We're gonna note if anything happens, if the surf comes up over the nest. That's important information for us to collect. So we're gonna note all of that during that incubation period, and then once we notice the nest is hatched, we'll dig down and do our inventory of the nest.
An inventory of the nest is logged and analyzed to show trends and reveal secrets previously unknown about this popular but elusive marine mammal. That information.
I'm sorry, what?
What?
One more time?
Helplessly unknown about this popular but elusive marine mammal. That
Unless the narrator's talking about Sarah there, I think she made a goof. Turtles are not mammals. They are very much reptiles. I wonder if it even said marine reptile in the script, and then people are just so used to saying marine mammal in reference to cetaceans, whales, pinnipeds, seals, sea lions, walruses. That's funny.
previously unknown about this popular but elusive marine mammal. That
That's funny. Did they mean to say animal? I don't know, Diagonal. Maybe. Yeah. But Reshwing is correct. The double M does roll off the tongue, though. It's so easy to say marine mammal. But I don't think the narrator is referring to Sarah, because she seems, at least in this setting, she seems terrestrial, you know?
information helps scientists understand the health of the turtle population, the health of the ocean, and other significant data, including nesting preferences.
Yep.
Turtles usually will nest in or around the same areas from which they were hatched. Now that's not always true, but what we oftentimes find is, so the leatherbacks kind of during the nesting season are the...
Win 528, even if there was a turtle who did those things, it would still be a reptile because it evolved from a reptile ancestor, you know? Even if a reptile produced milk and was endothermic, warm-blooded, and had hair, it would still be a reptile, you know? In fact, there are reptiles who have, or had, hair, I guess. They don't seem to have produced milk, but pterosaurs were presumably warm-blooded and had hair, which may or may not be homologous to feathers. It might not be the same exact structure as feathers, we're not totally sure. But yeah, this critter's very much a reptile, even though it looks like a little fuzzy muppet. The anuognathid pterosaurs are very much reptiles, you know? Yeah. Everybody loves anuognathus. Yeah. Little frog-faced little guy. In fact, I think the name anuognathus actually means frog jaw, doesn't it? Reconstructed in lots of different ways, but they tend to turn out pretty cute. Yeah. Look at that face, you know? It's like a real-life porg, I guess. You know? Yeah, it doesn't mean frog. Exactly, diagonal, yeah. Do they make plushies? Does anybody make plushies of them? You can get a pattern for one on Etsy, I guess. And Urognathus. Nice. Oh, and Paleo Plushies made one at one point, but I think it's, yeah, sold out. Nearly all of their stuff is always sold out. Yeah, gone for now for the vast majority of them. You gotta really hop on these quickly before they disappear. But you can get a jawless fish here. But anyhow, yeah, good stuff.
The most widest migrators, so they might nest 100 kilometers north of their first clutch or 100 kilometers south, but generally they're, you know, if they nest in Florida, they're going to remain in Florida.
Hang on, Claire says, we have a Urognathus at home. What is a Urognathus at home? This one reconstructed without any fuzz. I don't know about that.
The other species tend to be a little bit more site-specific, or have fidelity is what we call it, and will return to their, what we call their natal beaches. For the most part, that's not always 100% true, but we do have evidence of, on our beaches here, of mothers and sisters and daughters of some species on our beach.
So, is this nighttime fieldwork? Yeah, here, I'll give you a link to this if you'd like to watch the rest of it. But I want to make sure we get to something else here. So the nighttime nesting fieldwork is what I'm going to be doing tomorrow night, and I cannot wait. Holy cow.
Before it was mid-December, so our years it all blends together, it all blurs. I can't believe it's here again. So the morning program is a lot of what people see most commonly. However, our night program is kind of the hidden gem of Loggerhead. We've got we started the tagging program back in 2001, and we still have animals that are coming back during that time. I started at Loggerhead Marine Life Center in 2017 officially, but I did my PhD work there in 2007 and 2008. We still have turtles returning that I sampled 20 years ago to the beaches, and so it's like a full circle moment in your career that you kind of see these old friends that have millions of stories to tell. So we do have this night.
Horns fan says, very basic question. Once one of these turtles lays their eggs, do they have any further role in caring for them? No. So they just take off into the water, and there they go, you know. Chances are the mother turtle will never see her offspring. And this is just how they've been doing it since the Cretaceous. And it's worked for them very well up until the last few hundred years when we as humans have really messed things up for them.
Time tagging program that I mentioned that focuses primarily on the leatherback, but as our program has grown in number, we've started doing a lot more with the other two species, the loggerheads and the green turtles, reluctantly. How many of you in here have ever seen a leatherback turtle before? Not very many, right? It's pretty rare, but they are truly incredible. So as I mentioned in the title of my talk, or the description of my talk, they are often known as Earth's last living dinosaur. And
they're not dinosaurs, they're turtles. But I understand his impulse in saying this. They feel like they're straight out of the Mesozoic era because, well, they kind of are. They're this big, grand, just superlative creature. You want to call it a dinosaur. And I can understand that.
They've been around 100 million years. They've long before humans, long before all the other sea turtle species. They evolved from Archelon, which is even bigger than the leatherback.
And they probably didn't actually evolve from Archelon, but, well, they didn't evolve from Archelon. But Archelon and the other Protostega turtles may or may not be close relatives of the leatherbacks. We still don't really know. And this is one of the questions that I really want to tackle over the next couple of years.
And you'll
yeah.
hear why they are given that nickname.
Listen to this.
She does it again.
That's a turtle.
So that's Costa. She's one of our OGs, or original girls that we call her. She was one of the first, the first ones that we ever tagged back in 2003. Still nesting. We've seen her about 16 times since that time, and she's one of the noisier ones. They don't all do this, but it is my favorite part about them. And what's really cool, one of my coworkers, Jen Riley, is deaf, and obviously she can't hear the sounds that they're making, but this last year, she had her hands on the animal when it was making the sound, and she felt the vibrations. And so she was able to experience it in a way. I was just happy that she was able to experience something that we all think is so special. So I went to the punchline on accident, but
so when I was interviewing Justin on Friday, we were talking about these individual turtles, and I would look up the clip if there were a transcript for it, but YouTube didn't do a subtitles transcript for whatever reason. I asked him if there's, any individual turtles that we might see, and he said, Miss Piggy is due to return. If she goes by this, can't call it a schedule, but, a pattern. If she continues to observe this pattern, there's a very high likelihood that we will see this individual turtle, and you'll see why she's called Miss Piggy. You'll hear why she's called Miss Piggy right now.
See, so this is Miss Piggy. She was a neophyte, meaning the first time we ever saw her was in 2024. She'd never been tagged before or seen by any other researchers as far as we can tell. She made some funny noises. So she's done nesting. She's covering her eggs.
Yeah, I want to hear that one more time. Here. Turn the volume up a bit. Oh.
So she's done nesting. She's covering her eggs. And they don't care, the leatherback does not care about anything. Their size is their protection. Their only real predators are large sharks like tigers, whites, makos, maybe a killer whale every now and then, but that's about it. So on the nesting beach, we still give them their space and their privacy as they're laying their eggs and doing all of that. However, they're a little less finicky than the other two, which I'll show you a little bit later.
Anywho, incredible animals, leatherbacks, and I am beyond excited to be able to see these critters in person, meet the people who are working with them, doing science on them, working to protect them. For the past year, since last May, I was lucky enough to be able to go on a trip to Puerto Rico with Ios and Lordy, and nearly every time we visited a beach, there were these roped off areas where leatherback turtles had been nesting. And I'd always been aware that these are incredible animals, as a paleontologist, this is something that's just you're aware of. Here's the largest marine turtle today. Their lineage goes back to the Cretaceous. They are unique and superlative in so many ways. They're kind of the quintessential Mesozoic marine reptile that's survived until the present. They are truly special. I've always known that, but never did they feel close until this trip. And I realized I can get involved with these animals. I can advocate for their protection. I can contribute to their continued survival for the next 80 million years. And I can introduce them to this audience and try to get people as excited about these critters as I am. And now that's coming to fruition with this trip to Florida. I cannot wait. Again, it's a tremendous privilege to be able to do this kind of thing, and I am giddy. So yeah. With that said, it is time for me to wrap up this broadcast so I can finish the other 3 of these and get them ready for this trip. I'll be giving one to Justin, obviously, and one to Jeanette, too. But that's going to take some work. I still have to hit these with a clear coat and everything so the paint doesn't chip in transit. I still have to pack my bags and everything. Got to send out some emails, all that good stuff. So it's time to wrap up today's broadcast, about an hour early. But the next time you hear from me, I'll be in Florida. I am so excited. Holy cow. Don't go away just yet. We're going to raid into somebody else doing some science. See what our options are here. And a huge thanks to everybody being named in our credits. Let's see who else we've got here on Twitch right now. Casey is on. Let's go right into Casey. A Florida man. I know, right? Thank you, everybody being named in our credits. From new followers to subscribers and resubscribers, cheerers and gifters, the people who make these streams possible with their financial contributions, I am deeply, deeply grateful, and this wouldn't be possible without you, so thank you for that. Likewise to our moderators, who keep this a safe and welcoming community for everybody and allow me to focus on the science outreach and not having to worry about what's going on in the chat too much. Thank you, mods, for everything that you do. I will be streaming from some cool places in Florida. Some of these plans need to solidify a bit further. But stay tuned. Look for those going live messages and all that. I can't wait to show you some cool stuff in Florida. And wish me luck with that nighttime fieldwork. I'm so excited. Anyway, let's go right into Casey's snow art. I'll see you